Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2. Gary Vickers, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Pastor Drew Erickson from the Travis Avenue Baptist Church. Pastor, thank you for coming out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Judge, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity. Let's pray. Lord God in heaven, you tell us in your word that if we desire wisdom, we are to ask it from you, and you will give it to us. We pray today on the blessings of this court. We pray for your wisdom to be given. We pray for a sense of civility. We pray, God, for your peace to be here. Lord, you call us to this time, to this day that you have put us here. And so we ask that during these times, as we lead, as we guide, and as we shepherd, Lord, that you would give us the wisdom that comes from above. Incredible opportunities lie before us. And so we pray, God, that this group of men and women would lead us according to justice and according to the righteousness as described in your word. Help them, God. Let your favor be upon them. Give them wisdom and insight. We ask and plead in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Pastor. Where'd he go? Agenda announcements, Mr. Manius.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
We have several announcements as it relates to the agenda this morning. First, under the County Administrators section, item 8A3, this is a revision of the CARES Act Rental Assistance Program. There's a revised court communication in your red folder this morning as it deals with that. Plus, I believe that we had sent that information out to you yesterday afternoon also. Also, under the Administrators section, item 8A8, which is the fiscal year 2021 Ryan White HIV/AIDS program Part C. We're going to ask that we hold that for 1 week, and we'll be returning with that next week.
Is that so that Commissioner Johnson could sign all those forms that usually come along with that?
We actually have a trailer truck. We had a trailer truck to carry it out to Commissioner's place, but it broke down. So. Also, we're going to take several things out of order like we have in the past with one minor change. When we get to the administrator section, prior to that, we're going to have a presentation by TCDRS first, and then we'll move into the presentations dealing with the coronavirus. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of July the 28th.
Move approval.
We got a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And I would just like to mention Commissioner Allen, as we said last week, is out of the hospital, is back home and doing well, and so I know our prayers and wishes will be with her. So just please remember her, and she'll be back to join us virtually probably. Vickers, just be careful. I really don't want to have the day up here when I'm up here by my lonesome and all four of y'all are on that screen. Wow. I have trouble sometimes getting you to make messages or motions anyway.
We'll get Wilder set up there with you.
Thanks, JD. I really appreciate that. That one will really cost you, I'll guarantee you, from that standpoint. Under proclamations and resolutions, Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have a resolution.
Yes, I do. I've got a resolution of commendation for Miss Sarah Habib. It will be presented at a later time, but I'd like to read it into the record. Whereas Sarah Habib is being recognized for her exceptional academic, extracurricular, and civic achievements, and whereas Ms. Habib demonstrates dedication and commitment seen through her accomplishment in receiving the highest award of Girl Scouting, the Girl Scout Gold Award. And whereas she is a Girl Scout Juliet, Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas, and is actively involved in the affairs of her community. And whereas recognizing the need to educate teens about the concepts of financial literacy, Sarah planned and implemented financial literacy seminars to teach the topics of budgeting, credit savings, and investments. And whereas, with the help of her volunteers, she determined the best way to present information to different types of learners, creating interactive presentations with activities and resources available to explore after completing the seminars. And whereas this created an open space for students to discuss a topic sometimes considered taboo, making them more knowledgeable and willing to discuss finances. And whereas Sarah trained students and left materials for the seminars to be continued at her school, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, are pleased to recognize an outstanding young citizen of our county, Gold Award Girl Scout Sarah Habib, a Girl Scout Troop Juliet in the Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas, and congratulate her upon receiving the Girl Scout Gold Award. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 4th day of August, 2020, and I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Fickus, I believe you have a resolution.
I do. Very similar to the one. This resolution is a resolution of condemnation.
I think it's commendation.
Commendation.
I just wanted to be sure we got that record straight in here before we...
For Miss Alina Dickens. And whereas Alina Dickens is being recognized for her exceptional academic, extracurricular, and civic achievements. Whereas Mrs. Dickens demonstrates dedication and commitment seen through her accomplishments in receiving the highest award of Girl Scouting, the Girl Scout Gold Award. And whereas as a member of Troop 3230 Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas, is actively involved in the affairs of our community. And whereas in collaboration with the Keller ISD ESL program at Heritage Trace Church, Alina created a conversational chat program to increase the amount of time individuals had to practice their English. And whereas the conversational chat program provided one-on-one sessions allowing students to practice concepts and improve communication skills needed for everyday use helping to navigate day-to-day real-life situations. And whereas the material and website Alina created will continue to be used by Keller ISD for ESL students, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, are pleased to recognize an outstanding young citizen of our county, Gold Award Girl Scout Alina Dickens, Scout Troop 3230, Girl Scouts of Northeast Texas, and congratulate her upon receiving the Girl Scout Gold Award. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hand and caused the people of Tarrant County to be affixed this 4th day of August, 2020. Is Alina with? She's not with us today. I don't think so. Thank you.
Would you like
And I'd
to?
like to move approval.
We have
Second.
a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And now we come to one of my favorite times of the year. It's the kind of recognition of the departments and our 2019 United Way campaign. We have several people here. I see Leah, I see Faye from United Way. Susan, take it away.
Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come before court this morning. We're going to do something that we haven't done in a while. We're going to celebrate. We have some hardworking folks here at Tarrant County that did an amazing job last year for our 2019 United Way campaign, and we are going to honor them. A little different than what we have in the past, but that's okay. We're just excited that we get to give out their names in court and let everybody know the hard work that they did. As the judge mentioned, we do have some special guests with us in the court today. Leah King, she's the president and CEO of United Way of Tarrant County. Faye Ballou, who is Senior Vice President of Community Investment for United Way of Tarrant County. And we also have Dana Bergdorf, who is the Assistant City Administrator for the City of Fort Worth with us. So, and I think they are going to share some special news with you all once I give out the awards. So let's get this show started. This year, for 2019, our campaign theme was Live United. And how we showcased that is we had posters throughout the county of storyboards. And what that did is we highlighted actual folks who benefited from United Way dollars. We thought this was a great way to connect our employees with the work that United Way does. We focused on senior citizens and women and children and families that overcame poverty, that overcame educational barriers. We wanted to showcase how their donation to United Way was not a handout but a hand up. So throughout the county you can see these were some of the examples of the story posters that we had. So with the theme of Live United, how did that translate? It translated to our total dollars raised. So I'm going to announce what we did for 2019. The total dollars raised was $77,312.91. And that and that translates to an $18.82 per capita. Typically in the past, what we've done is we've invited our departmental winners. We have 3 categories that we honor: investment or increase over last year, per capita donation, and outstanding campaign. And we typically invite the departments that win those categories. We honor first, second, and third place. We invite them to court, but obviously due to social distancing, we can't have all those folks in court. So what we've done this year is all of our departmental winners have already received their awards, and for our second and third place winners, we've taken a photo, and we're going to show them on the PowerPoint. And I hope Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Brooks, I hope that you guys can see the PowerPoint because we've got some great photos of our employees. Our first place winners, we did something a little different. They did a video, and so they're going to share a message with you guys today. So we're going to pass out the awards just a little differently. Typically, we always give them out by the category, but this time we're going to do them by place. So we're going to start with our third place winners. And considering 2020 is unusual and different, we have something a little unusual for the first category. Our first category is increase over last year. And we have a tie. Believe it or not, out of all our departments, we ended up with a tie for third place. So the first winner of the tie is our Human Resources Department at 33%. And there's Tina and all the lovely ladies in our department, Robin and Ange back there. So yay, I'm going to say a shout out because I'm in Human Resources and I'm up here. So they tied with, and I'm going to look over here at GK, for 33% the county administrator's office. And I will just point out in this photo, you're going to see that they have 3 awards. So they really took it home this year. We're going to see this photo a lot.
So I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Yeah. All right, they took it home this year. You're going to see this photo a lot. So the next award for third place is our Outstanding Fall Campaign. And it goes to housing. They raised $5,000, and there's Wayne and his team in front of the housing building. Yay. Go, Wayne. And just keep clapping for Wayne, because guess what? They got third place in housing. They did in per capita giving. They did $208.33. Wayne and his team again. So great job to our third place winners. Now moving to our second place winners. And our increase over last year goes to the tax assessor collector's office. They did over 100% for last year. And I love this photo because this is Karen Edmondson. She works at the Mansfield tax office. And this is her beautiful grandniece, Zadaya, who wanted to jump in this photo. Karen led this team to 100% over their last year. So that was a great increase for the tax assessor. So, and you guys just, I love that smile. So the next category is our Outstanding Fall Campaign in second place. And let me press this button because I think it goes to the County Administrator's Office. They did $5,275. And there's that picture again. There it is.
Looks good.
I wish we could see them smiling, but they've got their masks on right there. So the next second place for per capita giving goes to Budget and Risk Management. They had a $212.45 per capita giving. And there are their fine faces right there in their Santa hats. Just as a reminder, ornaments will probably be sold fairly soon. So there you go. Now, moving to our first place winners, like I said, they have a video and they're going to share a special message with the court today. But I do want to go ahead and announce who won so that you know what places and who got what. Increase over last year for first place goes to Domestic Relations Office, and they did 231% over their last year goal. It's pretty impressive. Yay. The next category is the Outstanding Campaign, and in first place goes to the County Auditor. They did $8,244.42. That was some hard work right there. And if I haven't mentioned their name yet, I guess I'm going to have to mention it right now. First place in per capita giving goes to the County Administrator's Office at $251.19.
When you're good, you're good.
Y'all were great. Y'all obviously were great. So
Are you
y'all
the
did.
one that counts the money?
I have help. I'll call in.
He still has a way to go because his per capita is about half of the lowest commissioner's office.
Judge, it doesn't bother me that you're raining on my parade.
I just didn't want you to get the big head with 3 awards up here.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get the big head.
No. Okay, well, we, like I said, we've got a video, and we're going to go ahead and show that video right now. So we'll play that.
I'm Janice.
I'm Megan.
We're from DRO Child Support, and I just want to tell you that all of DRO jumped in and participated this year to help us reach our goal and surpass it over what we did last year. We did a lot of good fundraisers and had fun doing it.
And thank you to Tarrant County Credit Union for donating the awesome gift card.
So there are a lot of people that are involved to make the fundraiser a success, and there were lots of local businesses who gave to our efforts as well, and we couldn't have had such a successful auction without them. But I also want to thank Renee for her support in leading our team, and that she gives us the opportunity to be able to do this great effort. We have a great team here at the auditor's office, and as you can tell, everyone here has very giving hearts. So I also want to give a special shout out to Pam Walker, Alicia Carr, and Vicki Thack for helping me both mentally and physically with these efforts. And I also want to just thank the Commissioners Court for doing the United Way campaign and for giving the recognition in court. And then in addition, I don't want to forget the Tarrant County Credit Union for the gift card that we're going to get because we did good. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa McMillan, and I'm representing the Tarrant County Administrator's Office. We are proud to have been named first place in per capita giving for the 2019 United Way campaign. And we want to thank everyone who helped us get there by purchasing our frozen tamales. We won't be able to do our tamale lunch this year, but we will be selling tamales again. We also want to thank the Tarrant County's Credit Union for providing the wonderful gift card prize. Thank you very much.
Now, I would have loved to have frozen that because I want to go. I want to. Where is Russell Schaffner? Because he needs to pay extra.
He's in the room back here.
Russell, come out here. You need to put at least $100 in the pot. Because if you notice on her desk, what was on her desk?
A lot of junk.
No. Well, there's that, but in the very bottom left-hand corner, there was a little thing that says the census is coming. And so I figured that since you had to, you put that in there, that you need to pay for the advertisement of that. So, one of the things you can do is next year you can contribute an extra $100 to the administrator's campaign. That'll get it up a little bit higher. It won't get it anywhere near the commissioners, but it'll get it up a little bit higher.
Yeah, I was about to say 0.
Well, with 3 awards, y'all are going to have to really dig deep to keep the momentum going up right here. We'll do it. You'll do it. You'll do it. No worries on that. As mentioned in those videos, I do want to give a shout out to Tarrant County's Credit Union for each of the departments that won an award. We did receive a gift card. And Lily and Melissa are fantastic to work with, and they are so supportive of our programs. And I haven't had a chance to thank them this year. And considering the gift cards, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you. So now I know this is the part that y'all are waiting on, the official announcement of the court awards. And so before I go to this next slide, I do want to always give the disclaimer that I give every year. I am the messenger. I am the messenger.
And as the chief bean counter.
Well, yes.
And I want to make sure that everybody understands that it was the total amount raised from each commissioner's office divided by the number of employees within the office. So each one of us have 6 employees.
Well, actually, it is it's the total employees, the positions within the administrative staff of the precincts. So it's the number of positions that are within the administrative staff. So we did tweak that number just a little bit, but it didn't change anything. So we had to be fair and have what we have on the record for HR. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that slide, and we can see where everybody is. But before I announce anything, I do want you guys to know that to respect social distancing, all the awards are already in your chair, so that way I'm not coming up and handing everything out. And since you aren't present, Commissioner Brooks, I wanted to make sure that you knew that your award was in your chair. Can you see that? So, can you see? Is that okay? And, oops.
Ma'am, I see it.
Okay, so everybody has a bag, and you also have a little special something in your bag too. So, but everybody has their awards, and we will make sure that your staff gets that, or we'll leave it in your office for you. So, here is the announcement in case you can't read the screens. In 5th place this year, we have Commissioner Fickus with Precinct 3, and his total per capita is $580.72.
Which is more than double what the administrator's office has.
In 4th place, we have Commissioner Johnson with Precinct 4, and his per capita is $796.17. In 3rd place, we have Commissioner Brooks with Precinct 1, and his per capita is $879.29. And in second place, we have Commissioner Allen, with her per capita being $1,319.03. And in first place, we have County Judge Glenn Whitley with a per capita of $1,849.96. So congratulations to the court. Now,
He did it again, Roy.
Yeah. It's CPA trickery.
You just got to know how to count the beans.
So before I turn the podium over to Aaliyah, Faye, and Dana for another little special surprise, in each of your bags, I have something to give to you guys. I have a tumbler. Like I mentioned today, it's a celebration. We're celebrating our employees. We're celebrating the hard work. But typically we do this during Employee Appreciation Day, and we haven't had that opportunity yet. But I always give you guys just a little bit of something to say thank you from the employees. Number one, we appreciate so much the support that you provide to us, the ability to host United Way campaigns, to have tamale sales, popcorn sales, your fish fries, your cornhole tournaments, your hamburger sales, the taco day, the fiesta, the fact that you guys support us so much in the projects, whether it's putting money in a brown bag for the food bank, giving money or giving blood during our blood drives. This is just to say thank you. And typically at celebrations, you have a toast and say cheers. Well, since we all can't be here, you're all going to get a thermos with a little tumbler with the county seal on it. And so we'll just say cheers and thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it. And we look forward to next year's, or this coming year, or 2020, our new United Way campaign. So with that, I'm going to turn the podium over to Leah and Faye and Dana. Thank you all very much.
It's good to see everybody today. I love the competition. It's getting even fiercer from looking at the numbers compared year over year. Looks like some people are chomping at the bit to get to your number, Judge Whitley. It's hard to believe that last year when we stood before you that the world that we live in today would be as it is, that I'm standing here and we're all with masks and things are very, very different. But we do want to come with a celebratory heart and a heart of gratitude for everything that the entire staff for Tarrant County has done. We recognize that in order to make these numbers, that means that somebody is making contributions to care for somebody else in the community. And it is our great honor and privilege to be the stewards of those funds and invest those in the areas that need it most within the community. I did want to just take a second to say a special thank you to Susan and to Faye and to Dana, and I hope Dana comes up and shares a couple of quick words too. We know that in order to put on the campaign of this size, that it takes a lot of creativity, a lot of energy, and a lot of support, and we know each of the departments typically has somebody that comes in to help out as well. And so to the County Administrator's Office, congratulations. To HR, to Housing, to the Tax Assessor, Budget Risk Management, Domestic Relations, and the County Auditor's Office for your respective awards. Congratulations to you as well. These funds are going to help hundreds of thousands of our friends, our neighbors, our family. And today, more than ever, I think it's very apparent and evident on why it's critical to have a strong United Way. We have been able to help support our neighbors with food, with PPE, with baby formula, and a host of other things to ensure that people are eating, they're sheltered, they're safe as possible. And we cannot do it without support from all of you here. So with that, I would just like to say thank you so much for allowing us to be participants in your contributions, allowing us to steward them on your behalf to our neighbors, and allowing us to participate in the fund that you clearly have every year when you do this. I will say that the county is the winner of the competition between the county and the city of Fort Worth. So congratulations.
And that's the reason Dana is here versus Mayor Price.
It might have something to do with it, but I will tell you, be on the lookout. Dana is coming back, and she had a tremendous growth, 3-digit growth year over year and their dollars raised. So they're on your heels. You might want to keep your eyes out. And I would just ask Dana if she wants to come up and share a couple of words real quick.
It's good to see you here this morning.
Thank you, Judge Whitley. Thank you,
It's a whole lot better
Commissioners.
to see you here under these circumstances than under me being down there or,
Yes.
or Betsy being here.
Yes, we are very humble coming before you today, and I appreciate the opportunity to accept the challenge for 2020. We certainly know how important United Way is to Fort Worth residents and Tarrant County residents, our own employees, and so it's just been such a struggle this year that we hope that will help generate even greater support for the United Way and all of the great services that they provide. So we definitely appreciate the challenge, and we'll take Mr. Manius's example back to David Cook, and of course Judge Whitley's example, and the commissioners back to our mayor and city council. So appreciate the opportunity to be here and to continue the challenge into next year.
Dana, we appreciate very much you coming down. And folks, I mean, we work very closely together throughout the year, but this year has been even more the exception. As we have weekly phone calls with a lot of our providers, a lot of the folks who are helping people get through this COVID pandemic. And United Way has stepped up from a standpoint of masks to a lot of these service providers who needed masks. They've stepped up to help with meals for the folks who you typically don't think of needing meals. Just remember, when the senior centers shut down, that shuts down a tremendous number of meals. When schools shut down, that too basically increases the need for meals. And United Way has stepped up to really help. So the money that you're raising, the money that you're giving, makes a difference in this community. And it's one which many of us don't ever really recognize. So I want to thank you. It won't be long before I'm going to be asking again. But this is something that is extremely important to our community. And I cannot tell you how pleased I am to be a part of this, and the folks with United Way and the way they've done that. And you know, this little friendly competition, which we lost the first year, and that's the only year that I had to ride that. I didn't have to ride, I had to pedal that bike down Main Street. But we'll welcome a little bit of competition, and we'll go forward with that. But thank everybody, and especially I want to thank the employees of Tarrant County. You know, I give GK a hard time. Y'all have really stepped up. We've seen some big increases this year in our departments, and I hope everybody will kind of pick up that spirit as we go forward next year and see if we can't, maybe double what you've done in the past, and let's really blow the roof off this thing this next year. So, Dana, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Tell the mayor and the city council that we understand that they just can't quite keep up with the county.
That's right.
But that, one of these days, maybe they can step back up and catch up with us.
Yeah, there's always hope. Thank you.
That's right. There's always hope.
In closing, I just wanted to also give a special recognition to Faye Ballou, who has been at the county side the entire time, and none of this would happen without her dedication. And so thanks so much to Faye, and then to each and every one of you, to commissioners, to judge, thank you so much for allowing us to be here each year. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate the support. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Faye, thank you for being here, Claire. I would move that we receive and file the United Way campaign report.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Our next is our employee recognition. And Megan, take it away. Maybe.
It just needs to load real quick. There it is.
Good morning. Because of the COVID-19 virus, we have, and the restrictions that it's placed upon our meetings, I'm sorry to say that we're going to have to postpone our employee recognition. That is one of my favorite times of the month, and so I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to do that this month, but I promise you that when everything gets back to normal or whatever our new normal is, we'll begin those again, and we'll make up for those meetings and for those months that we've had to miss. Again, I want to thank you personally for what you do for Tarrant County, especially during this time when we've had to face the challenges of the COVID-19 virus. Our employees have always stood up for the test, and you've done exactly the same thing during this time frame. You're what makes Tarrant County such a great place to live, to work, and to raise our family. Again, thank you very much, and I look forward to getting back to our routine of being able to recognize our valued employees on that first Tuesday of every month. Thank you. You've had a chance to look over those lists. I hope if you see some names up there that you recognize that you'll congratulate them. Rachel in my office this marks her 5th year with my office, so she's survived that first rung on the ladder, and we're very glad and very fortunate to have her in my office, and I want to certainly congratulate her on that. And go from there. So I will move that we receive and file the employee recognition.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file employee recognition. Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson? I saw him say yes, even though I didn't hear him say yes. You need to unmute, JD, but motion passes.
Yes, they cut me off.
Yeah, we're going to try to get one of those installed up here. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, court
We're going to get one on yours, too.
I know. Y'all all wish you had that. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda except for item 8.
Second.
Under the administrator's office.
With motion is second, please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. We are now going to go to the briefing items. We're going to go to item 11A, which is the update from TCDRS. I'm going to ask Ms. Worthy to come forward and make some comments.
Good morning. I'll be quick. I'd like to make some quick introductions. I guess I should take this off. Quick introductions before Erica begins to talk to us about TCDRS. We have some new faces in our benefits group, and I want to introduce them. While Amber Duckworth is not a new face, she has recently been promoted to our benefits manager. Amber served as our assistant benefits manager for over 7 years, and she's sitting at the back waving her hand. Yes. Rochelle Neal is our new assistant benefits manager. She joined the county in early March before all of our funds started. And she comes to us with 20 years of HR and benefits experience, and she's there in the back. And then Lena Brazil is our new PBSC benefits coordinator, also known as our retirement specialist. Lena has actually been with the county and with HR for 20 years, and she is also sitting in the back. So those are my introductions for our new benefits staff, and I'll now turn it over to Erica Aguirre, and she will make the annual presentation regarding TCDRS. We will not be asking you to make any decisions on our contribution rate today. This is just a briefing item. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Erica.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Judge Whitley, it is an honor, commissioners, and all of you to speak to you today. But I do have to admit that it is so difficult not to be there in person. I look forward to coming every year, but to see your faces on the screen and to hear your laughter and to watch all of the promotions and the successes, I'm honored to be with you this morning. I really am. Thank you for having me. I'd like to take a brief moment just to give you our annual briefing, and I do have a few updates that I find you might be very interested in considering the year that we are facing. So I will do so, and as always, open up for any questions you might have following this brief presentation. Next slide, please. TCDRS partners with nearly 800 employers now. We grow each month to provide retirement, disability, and survivor benefits. And of course, our employers are all counties except for Motley. We're almost there. We're trying to get them on board. And governmental entities. And we average between 20 and 30 new employers each year. We are proud to serve more than 320,000 Texans. As a system, we are 89% funded, and if you include our reserve funds, we are 92% funded overall. With an 8.9 35-year return, we are one of the best funded retirement systems in the nation. And currently, we manage nearly $34 billion in assets as of December 2019, so we are one of the 50 largest retirement systems in the country. Next slide, please. From the very beginning, TCDRS has been different from other public retirement plans. We were created by the Texas legislature in '67, and as you know, we do not receive any state funding. Each plan is funded by investment earnings, employers such as yourselves, and of course the employees as well. And we do not charge employers fees for participation. Our employers do benefit from our economies of scale that come from participating in professional asset management and administration. Our operating costs average about 0.23% of assets, and for comparison, typical 401ks run about 1 to 2% of assets. So we provide benefits efficiently. We are governed by a 9-member board of trustees that are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state senate, and we are very honored to have Tarrant County Clerk Mary Louise Nicholson serve as our vice chair for our TCDRS board of trustees. Next slide. This chart shows how TCDRS compares to defined benefit plans such as traditional pensions and defined contribution plans like 401ks. If you'll notice the left column, an example of a defined benefit would be a traditional pension plan like the state of Texas pension. The benefit is based on an employee's final salary and, of course, the length of their career. The benefit does last for a lifetime. Employer contributions vary, and the employer assumes all of the investment risk and demographic risk as well. On the other side, you have a defined contribution plan. An example would be a 401k, and these plans, the benefit is based on the employee's investments and their match. The benefit will vary depending on how well the individual invests and how well the market performs. This benefit may not last a lifetime, and the employee does assume all of the investment risk. But TCDRS is the best of both worlds. The member gets a benefit for life, but the risk is shared in our plan because employers have the ability to adjust benefits on an annual basis. Next slide. Over 50 years, TCDRS has been a model for providing reliable retirement benefits. And the 3 features that I'm always proud to mention are that we have a savings-based benefits, which means our employees and our employers simultaneously are saving money in advance of retirement. And that when that day comes, our retirees earn a lifetime monthly benefit based on their savings account balance and their employer match. We are responsibly funded. We have one of the most conservative funding policies in the nation. There are no contribution holidays. All employers are required by law to fully fund their plan. And each year, when we value your plan, we adjust your rate to ensure that your liabilities are paid to zero over a closed 20-year amortization period. And finally, our plan offers flexibility and local control so that each year, decision makers such as yourselves can review your plan and adjust the benefits as you need to meet Tarrant County's workplace needs and budget. Next slide, please. Your employees are saving toward, of course, their lifetime monthly benefit that you provide through TCDRS. And every paycheck, 7% of their pay is deposited into their own TCDRS account. And by state statute, employee accounts earn 7% compound interest. Next slide, please. The benefit your employees receive when they become eligible and choose to retire is based on how much money they've put in over the course of their career, plus, of course, the employer match. Currently, the employer match percentage for Tarrant County is 200%. The amount of the employee's lifetime monthly benefit depends on their age, because we have to assume a life expectancy, and the payment option that they choose at retirement. And we offer 7 different options that they can choose from upon retiring. Next slide, please. In addition to providing valuable benefits for your employees, TCDRS benefits Texas as a whole. In 2019, TCDRS paid an estimated $1.6 billion in benefits, and due to our economic studies that we take, 96% of those people stayed in Texas. Most retirees continue to live in the communities they served as public employees. So the money you and your employees put into TCDRS eventually return back to your local community. TCDRS benefits provided to retirees in the Tarrant County area accounted for over $78 million in 2019. This money flows through the economy to support economic output, create jobs, and of course add millions to the Texas GDP. Next slide, please. A glimpse at your rates are that your employee deposit rate, as I mentioned, is 7%. Your employer match stands at 200%. And by statute, those two rates can vary. By statute, you can go as low as 4%, and 7% is the highest in our system allowable. The match can range in increments of 5 from 100% to 250%. Vesting is 8 years of service for Tarrant County, and that can be lowered to 5 years if Tarrant County ever chooses to lower their vesting period. And of course, one of 3 eligibility rules are all that's required for a member to become eligible, and you'll see them there on the screen. They must be age 60 with at least a vesting of 8 years, or they can hit the rule of 75. Of course, they must be vested first to hit this rule, or 30 years of service at any age. Next slide, please. A combination of 3 elements actually fund your plan. This image shows for every benefit dollar paid to retirees, 77 cents comes from our income investments. Our 13 cents are from employers such as yourself, and 10 cents from actual employees' deposits. Because you and your employees save for benefits in advance over your employees' careers, you get the maximum power of investment earnings over time. And of course, investments do fund most of every benefit dollar paid. Next slide, please. Which is why we have very strong importance with our investment earnings toward funding these benefits. They are managed very diligently. We have a fully diversified portfolio across and within asset classes that is uniquely constructed to achieve our long-term goal of 8% over time. Of course, within an acceptable level of risk. Next slide, please. Specifically, this chart shows our annualized returns over various periods net of all fees. And of course, net of all fees does indicate that the return available to fund benefits after all of the fees have been paid. At TCDRS, we're long-term investors. To put long-term in context, employees who retire from TCDRS work an average of about 18 years. And then they may be retired for another 20 plus years, giving us an investment horizon of more than 30 years for just one retiree. We also measure ourselves against industry established benchmarks, and we have a track record of exceeding these benchmarks over all periods. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, our long-term investment goal is 8%, but we know that our investments will not earn exactly 8% each year. Of course, as you've witnessed, some years we'll earn far more and some years we will earn less. This graph specifically shows our actual return over the last 20 years. As you can see, the portfolio has performed mostly as expected because our returns are within the gray band, which signifies our risk tolerance. We are very understanding of the performance. As long as it remains within that risk tolerance, this portfolio is performing as expected. Except for the Great Recession of 2008 and the subsequent recovery in 2009, we've been able to remain within that risk tolerance. Next slide, please. The benefits you are providing your employees are extremely responsibly funded. This funding ensures that the necessary funds will be there when the time comes to pay benefits. Your employer rate for 2021 is 13.50% of payroll. That is the required rate. However, Tarrant County has paid an elected rate for the last 6 years, which is why you are very responsibly funded. Currently, your elected rate is 19.50% of payroll. And for this court, we uniquely ran a stochastic model using a -8 return for 2020. And we found that because you have been paying a strong elected rate for these last 6 years, you have created a sizable buffer. This buffer has greatly improved your chances that your elected rate will hold through this downturn that we are currently facing in 2020 and even in a future down market conditions. And so this stochastic modeling was one recently just for Tarrant County because we wanted to show you how well your elected rate has performed in your favor. And this buffer that you have created is exactly for times like this that we're facing this pandemic. Your rate is doing two things. It's investing in your current employees' future benefits, and it's paying down your liabilities faster than 20 years. Not just 20 years, but faster because you've created that buffer. Next slide, please. You'll notice that your rate decreased for several reasons from 2020 to 2021. From 14.37% that you currently pay, your rate decreased to 13.50, and we knew it would. We knew because of the elected rate that you've had in place for the last several years. Also because we had a positive return in 2019. So collectively, you had very positive experiences and your rate reduced to 13.50. The court can remain at the 19.50 if it chooses. It can adjust that elected rate as it chooses, and it can go any range as long as it pays at least to 13.50. And that speaks to the flexibility and local control that you have as decision makers every year. Next slide, please. The decision process occurs throughout the year as discussions emerge and as you view your rates and impact, and the deadline is always December 15th. So you have plenty of time to discuss any decision you'd like to make. And as the account representative for you, my role is to provide you with any information you need that specifically speaks to your rate and impact. As I mentioned, the stochastic model that we were able to look at for you, even with a -8 return in 2020, shows that your elected rate will hold just fine because of that sizable buffer that you've created. If you would like to make any plan changes whatsoever, they are due in my office by the 15th, and I have a wonderful opportunity to work with Amber and Rochelle and everybody in your office, and so they're very timely in getting me all of what you need. So my role is to make sure that I do my part and get them what they need if, in fact, you do want to make any plan changes. And the final slide, please. And of course, our information is on the screen, and we are here for you. We are here to answer questions, to provide detail in any market in any year. And I do have the availability to provide additional studies if you so choose them. And at this time, of course, I'd like to pause and open the floor for any questions from Judge Whitley and the court. Anybody who would like to ask me to dive deeper or to specify anything additionally.
Erica, I guess one question that I would have, and you may not have this number handy, but can you tell me what 1%, we're at 19.5, that's our election. What does 1% yield as far as, or what does 1% cost us in that contribution?
When you say 1%, Judge, can you be more specific?
Well, if for example, right now we're paying 19.5.
Yes, sir.
So if we were paying 18.5, what would that 1% decrease or 1% increase cost us as far as our budget purposes go?
Oh, I'd be more than happy to get that for you. That would be something I would get from actuarial services, and I'm happy to do so. Yes, sir. I can ask them at an 18.5 what that would cost, and how that would impact your plan. Yes, sir. I can get that for you.
3.5 to 4 million.
I would think so, but I just want to be sure that I'm not missing something in that deal. So yeah, if you could do that, that would be helpful.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions of Erica? I'm assuming that you can't look into your crystal ball and tell us what's happened through June or what you think might happen for the rest of the year.
Actually, Judge, I'm ready for you. I knew you would ask, so I got that information for you. And at the end of June, the portfolio was down an estimated negative 7.7%.
Okay.
And so we are watching it very diligently. And of course, we tracked it. In April, it was negative 8.8. And at the end of June, negative 7.7. So that's why when we did the stochastic consideration for my meeting to speak to you today, we ran it at a negative 8 just to give us a whole number. But we are tracking it very diligently. And we did have the State of the System webinar that both Amy Bishop and Casey Wolf gave, and it's excellent. It's on our website. They summarize things that are happening and moving for TCDRS, how strongly we are, and how we've lived through tech bubble bursting, the Great Recession, other market downturns, and we have a long-term investment horizon and a long-term view. And so we're not worried by any means. We're doing very well, but we are accurately tracking how that progress of the year has been for us, as a whole. So if anybody is interested, I highly encourage you to visit that State of the System webinar on our website at your convenience.
Well, I missed your conference this year. I hate that we had, that had to be done on a virtual basis versus being able to be there. Also, I guess that number that you gave me, that's 7% down, that's primarily your equities that you can track. Historically, your preliminary numbers have shown a little bit more of a loss or not quite as much of earnings because it doesn't really take into account your private holdings and things.
Yes, sir. This is what we were able to track at this time. You're absolutely right.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, and we sure missed the conference ourselves. It was a tough year to not have our employers visit us, and our speakers and people who participated with us each year. We're hoping for a return conference next year that's just better than ever. That's what our hope is.
Thank you. Any other questions for Erica?
No, I appreciate very much him giving us this report. Very good job.
You're very welcome. Thank you, sir. You're so welcome. It's my pleasure.
And I would like to thank the court for, for going along. We have, on a consistent basis, continued to increase our funding. You heard at the beginning where she said that the average funded is 89%. This year we hit 89.3%. And so, I appreciate the court's commitment to our employees to fund that and to keep that well funded and move that forward. Robin.
I was just going to say thank you, and we'll bring you back more information in a few weeks.
Okay, thanks. No action at this time.
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Manius.
Okay, now we're going to go to the next briefing item, and this is the updates on the current and emerging health issues. Dr. Tenaz is here to address the court at this time. Your Honor, I thought what we would do is have this presentation, and then you all can make a determination when you want to hear the audience participation.
Okay.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the court. Again, back for our public health briefing, and we're going to start with the West Nile update. So as you can see on the charts, our positive pools are reaching a peak very similar to what we saw in 2016. So as I've been saying for the last couple, 3 weeks, we have very high West Nile activity. About 30% of our pools getting tested are coming back positive. So that's 1 in 3 mosquito pools. That's a very high number. Vector index is pretty high. That's sort of a measure of infectivity, if you will. And that's above 0.5, which we track almost every year. The big story here is that Northeast Tarrant County, in particular, is bearing the brunt of this issue. And again, just to be clear, these are mosquito pools. Human cases, so far, only 1 case that ended up in a death. But these are a harbinger of bad news, right? I mean, if we don't act when we see this data, we expect more human cases to occur because these mosquitoes may end up biting and infecting people. Northeast Tarrant County, we're seeing 50% positivity. So that's very high numbers that we haven't seen in our recent years. And, you know, that's time for action. We issued a public health warning last week, I think on Thursday. And I believe Dallas County did the same this week because they're starting to see some of this numbers impact them as well. So how do we prevent an outbreak from occurring? I mean, you know, mosquito surveillance gives us a fair early warning. We talk about integrated vector control approach. You know, education certainly is key for the public to take appropriate action for themselves and for their property. But also, you know, making sure we're doing larviciding, we're doing adult deciding, which is the mosquito spraying. But in larviciding, there's an important step, making sure people are using those dunks to put into any standing water that can't be gotten rid of. And of course, certainly around their property, getting rid of any standing water. Even things like old tires, kids' toys, just containers, planters, whether you water the plant or sprinkler system hits it, a little bit of collection of water can help breed mosquitoes, and we have to take care of our property. And one thing that I want to point out, we usually reserve this, but this is a time to pull out all our tools against West Nile. Those hose-based mosquito sprayers. I want people to go, especially in Northeast Tarrant County, to go to Home Depot, Walmart, any big box store, buy those things that you can hook up to the hose and spray your lawns, bottom of the fences, shrubbery that is not flower bearing because we don't want to kill the bees. But you know, this would be the time to pull out all the stops to prevent West Nile outbreak.
Cutter is the name of the, because I sprayed before.
Yes, sir. There's a lot of brands. Yes, sir. Yeah, Cutter is one popular brand. That is correct. Yes, sir. And, you know, that's our public helping us around their property because certainly government can't be on their property and do stuff. But in public areas, we've asked our city partners to increase our spraying efforts. So they're increasing the frequency and also the spray zone. Typically, a spray zone radius is about a quarter mile from a positive West Nile pool location, but we've asked them to increase it to about a mile. That's the max known range of the mosquito that carries West Nile. And then also increasing frequency to multiple nights in a row to really address the issue. So the point of all of this is that our ground game has to be really, really strong. We have a phase response plan to West Nile, and we're already hitting phase 3 of 4. So, you know, if our ground game doesn't work well and we need everybody to participate, it leaves us very little choice but to come back and start talking about aerial spraying, which I know in 2016 we had a conversation about that. Not a very popular choice, not an easy decision to make. So we want to make sure that everybody participates. Protect yourself against West Nile, wear DEET, long sleeve clothes, use dunks, remove standing water, and take care of your property. And our city partners are doing a great job getting the ground game out for public areas. They're taking all the protective action that we need to take. It has to work. And we really don't want to open up a second front. We're already sick and tired of dealing with COVID, and we don't really want to deal with West Nile. So we really need to take this action starting today. I'll pause there for any questions on West Nile. Okay. All right, so back to COVID, because that's the big issue on hand. So situational awareness, globally more cases occurring, 18.2 million cases, 694,000 deaths. Texas is starting to slow down a little bit, but we're at 442,000 cases with 7,000 deaths and 3.8 million tests conducted, out of which Tarrant County is now approaching almost 195,000 tests. In Tarrant County, we have, this morning we're going to add about 800 some cases, so that's going to bring our number to over 30,000, and we'll add about 5 deaths, bringing our number to 396. But there's a lot of changes coming, and we wanted to have a discussion with you. DSHS has asked us to look at a probable case definition. That definition came out in May. There was some back and forth discussion, but no real timeline on when to implement it. So now what they've asked is, they gave us actually July 31st as a deadline to submit data, how many cases are confirmed, how many are probable. And we told them that we're going to have a discussion with you in Commissioner's Court before we submit that information. I have a link there. We can open that up if you want to go over in detail, but let me give you, there's about 15 different ways we can look at a probable case. Common and easy to understand example would be a family unit, right? So a husband tests positive for COVID-19, gets sent home. They have the instructions, stay home, isolate, don't go anywhere, all those type of things. And we give them instructions to stay away from family. But what happens in a family unit? You're really sick, your spouse is going to come take care of you, kids are going to come around, try to see how you're doing. Exposures do occur in a family unit. So a few days later, within the incubation period, wife comes down ill with the same type of symptoms, cough, fever, shortness of breath, or other COVID-like illness symptoms. Do we really need to prove with a test that that person has COVID-19? You can classify them as a probable case, especially when testing demand is high, resources are low, and there are delays in turnaround times on testing. It makes good sense. Other things that are occurring, lots of different type of testing are coming out. We've heard about antibody testing, which generally is very nonspecific, but if you couple that with a COVID-like illness, a clinician thinks it's COVID, you've got an antibody test that's showing positivity, that can be considered a probable case. New tests are coming out, something called an antigen test. Now, we use those type of tests in other illnesses like hepatitis B and many others. We had not had experience using those in COVID. They're starting to show very good confirmatory rate. For now, they're classified under probable case. So those are some 2 or 3 different examples, but there's multiple ways we can classify a probable case. So looking at what DSHS wanted us to do, we looked at our data, got about 1,500 some cases that are considered probable. And when we add that to the total, our total is going to be above 31,000. So we wanted to make sure that you understand that we're going to have to make some changes to our dashboard. One is, of course, starting to show what our confirmed cases are, probable cases are, and this is not exact numbers. This is just a sort of a mock-up, if you will, but it will have total cases on the summary page, and then broken up by confirmed and probable, just like the DSHS expected us to do. Some of the other changes that we're wanting to roll in while we make this change is that instead of a daily view on the charts, we want to make sure that we start to show a weekly view. That data is getting very crowded on the chart to really be easily, visualized or to understand it. So weekly view makes the trends more clear. We're wanting to make that change. There's been a lot of feedback on our heat maps. In the beginning, people wanted to see where there's issues in the community, and so we started building those. But now that we're several months in, that heat map's sort of losing its value because it's cumulative data. And we've been, talking about making it a 30-day recent data heat map because, if a person was ill, about 30 days ago, there's still potential from, second and third generation cases occurring from that person within that area. So a 30-day heat map would be a probably more better visualization of the information other than a cumulative heat map. And then there's been a lot of confusion. So we show epi curves here in Commissioner's Court, and that's by specimen date because that's kind of the true curve of how the pandemic is occurring in our community. But the daily counts are posted on a case counts chart. And I know you guys have given us feedback. We've heard from the media partners and from the general public as well, that when we announce, oh, we're going to have 800 cases, the bar doesn't always match up to that number, and the bars on the previous few days also move. So there's been a little bit of confusion. And the reason for that is the way public health folks are used to presenting data is, okay, when did we receive this report? And just to be clear, it's not us being always late or anything like that. It's like we got a report and it was missing information. The lab wasn't attached or something wasn't there, but we got the reports 2 days ago. And then today the lab shows up. So we're like, okay, well, now it looks like a confirmed case, so we report it, but the report date was when we received it at public health originally. So that's been sort of the confusion. But to clean that up, we'd like to go to a weekly view and change to report by date, meaning today we're reporting 800 cases, so that addition to the bar is going to be 800 cases. That way it matches up on what we're saying on a daily basis. It's just changing the way we present information. We still have the other data set. If anybody's interested, we can share that. But just to kind of clean up, it's been a confusion between how we like to present information and how public would like to view it. So we want to make sure that while we're making these changes, we make all of those on our dashboard at the same time so that we're not continually changing our dashboard. And then a final thing I wanted to share with you that, from the beginning till now, our staff have been working real hard and trying to accommodate everything on a daily basis. We count our data from midnight to midnight. But as the volume has increased, these folks are working late into the night and then getting up in the morning, because I know we start sharing information with you all at about 7:30 in the morning, and it's really burning them out. We'd like to see, and other departments do this, they have cutoff times. We'd like to see if we can make a 4 p.m. cutoff time on our data. All that would do is, stuff coming today to public health by 4 p.m. We'll count it, report it tomorrow, and then we'll repeat the process again at 4 p.m. So it's a one-day data glitch. Otherwise, it's still on a 24-hour cycle, and it will save their midnight oil, if you will, because they're just burning on both ends. So those are some of the changes, and I can answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, if you're okay, we're ready to proceed this afternoon with our dashboard updates and with this reporting to DSHS, because the deadline was Friday.
Is that going to be what you're saying the new screen would look like?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's kind of the snippet of what the screen would look like. Yes, sir. That's a mock-up.
Where would, right now you have a substantial spread. Where is that going to be shown on the screen?
That's still there. That's not going to change. So from a confirmed and probable count, we're just going to add those two boxes. And then instead of positive cases, we're going to make the main box as total cases. It's going to add up the confirmed and probables and kind of show you a total. Another nuanced thing that's going to happen is on the epi curve chart, right? The bars and I'll show you those. It usually only has our confirmed cases there, or the ones that we report. And it's going to have a little addition there with probable cases, because that's how the science requires us to show it, that if you're going to start to classify a disease into different categories, then show it on the bar chart. That way you know how many were confirmed and how many were probable, and it shows you the overall trend, a truer picture of what's happening in your community. Again, case in point.
I want to be sure on the probable again. In order for them to be called probable, in the example you use, the husband shows up positive, it's assumed that the wife, in order for it to end up being classified as probable, there has to be some symptoms displayed. So it's not just a matter, we got 3 people in the household, therefore we're going to assume all the other 2 are there. They're going to have to be symptoms.
Correct. So a very astute point. So let's say the husband is positive and the family unit is wife and 2 other kids, and if they're not symptomatic, they're just close contacts, and they don't get reported as a case at all. And we've had very successful scenarios where we ask the family to separate, husband stays in a room, wife stays with the kids in the other room, very, very successful at maintaining that isolation, and they never turned into a case.
Yeah, the husband was real glad to be in the other room.
Yes.
And had it been the other way around, the husband would have put the children in the room with the...
Yes, sir. And if you recall our very first case, I mean, that was the scenario. We discussed it at length.
Yes, it was.
And they were very successful. The wife never turned positive and never was considered a case.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I guess, Vinny, my only concern, you and I had a discussion about this yesterday. You've got the people who are asking these questions, what qualifies them? I mean, you're basically, at the end of the day, these are getting counted as cases.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got generally a non-medical person who is making that determination on where to put that little check mark. That concerns me.
So actually, you bring up a very good point. So in medicine, in the practice of medicine, these folks are being treated and dealt with as cases, right? So if the wife was to go to a physician and her husband would be the positive case, the physician's like, oh, well, if you want a test, we'll get you a test, but go home, take the same medication, Tylenol, watch for the same things. So he would treat her as a COVID-19 case, and that's common practice in medicine. We see that in other diseases. For example, in pertussis, a clinician may see 1 or 2 kids in the morning, gets a test done. Oh, yeah, they came back with pertussis. They see another 2 kids in the afternoon, same kind of symptoms. Let's just give them a Z-Pack. They probably have pertussis. And that's how medicine typically works. They don't always test for every single thing, because if it's common and it makes sense clinically, they're just going to treat you what is the term is called empirically, right? Give you some broad spectrum stuff, send you home. So in this case, they're clinically a case. For all practical public health purposes, they're a case. Data scientists, epidemiologists, they are very particular about the cleanliness of their data. So they're going to determine based on written guidance, and that's, if we can click on the link, I can show you, it's a long, complex document, but they're going to verify and look at all the combinations, and that's how they classify it. So when they do it, it's for surveillance purposes. It doesn't change how the person is viewed in the medical world, and they're not making a diagnosis of what this person is. Is it a confirmed case or probable case? The diagnosis is done from a clinical basis. Oh, you have COVID-19, you're good to go. So this is looking at the back end and cleaning up the data, making sure that we're not missing anything in our community so that the trend is clear.
So back to my question earlier. So we've got the husband, confirmed case, confirmed positive. Now, in order for the wife or the children to be put in that probable, they're going to have to exhibit symptoms, so an asymptomatic person might not end up getting ticked off the chart as a probable.
Yes, sir.
And in all likelihood, if they've got those symptoms, then they will have gone to the doctor, and the doctor may not have run the test, but may have said, we're going to treat this as COVID. If you want a test, we can give you a test, but
Absolutely.
Otherwise we're going down the road.
Absolutely.
But they're going to have had to have gone to the doctor.
Well, not necessarily. And the reason is when we do contact monitoring, right? So we check with the family members, how are you doing? Because someone in your family was ill. When a person turns ill, a contact, we encourage them to go to the doctor, but sometimes they ask, well, I'm generally okay. I've got this, sore throat and a cough and a fever. Do I really need to go? It's your choice. It's a mild illness. Doctor's probably going to send you home saying, well, you've got the same illness, stay at home. So that discussion does happen, but it's not a guarantee that everybody would have gone to the doctor. But if they do, I can tell you what the doctor's going to say. If you want a test, we can get you a test, not a problem. We're not saying no. And that has happened in many of our probable cases. That's why the numbers so fluctuate. Probable cases, some decided to go get a test and turned into an actual confirmed case. And some said no, and that's fine because I'm mildly ill. And it's how they want to do it.
Well, I think this is a good thing to go with. I mean, y'all have looked at it. Whether you do it today, whether you do it over the weekend, whatever, just, I'm go forward. But I agree with you. You got to have a cutoff time, and I really want to say I appreciate all the work that your department has done, because I know that really since March, you've pretty much been working 24/7.
Yes, sir.
And we appreciate that very much. I also, and I know we'll probably talk about this later on, but while you're here, I really want to thank you again for getting that software in place. The pending numbers have gone from over 3,000 down to around 300.
Yes, sir.
And that, basically we went out and, because we approved and you implemented that new software, we've been able to communicate with a whole lot of folks in ways, again, social media, and that's the way most or a lot of folks now communicate. And I really want to applaud you and your department for sending that out and doing it in that direction, because it's made all the difference, I think, in the world from that perspective.
Yes, sir. And thank you for recognizing my team, because they've been literally 24/7. I mean, I'm feeling the pain, and I can tell you they're working harder than I am, and I'm super tired because we've just been going crazy. So that says something. So we appreciate you guys recognizing us and letting our public health team know that they're valued, because sometimes, when you're facing the onslaught of cases, it's like, wow, like what else do I need to do? So we appreciate it.
Well, and I know that there's also things, and we're probably going to talk about this a little bit later on too, but as school begins to, as we begin to try to figure out what's going to go through the schools, I hope that y'all can develop some guidelines.
Yes, sir.
And that you can either partner, maybe we look at partnering with UNT and their public health department, or however, but I think it's critical that we get out to those different districts, private schools, whatever the cases may be, and help them, or maybe review the plan that they're putting in place to make suggestions and recommendations, because I think that's going to be critical to, how are we going to open the schools? How are the nurses going to be prepared in those schools from that perspective? And then, what happens when the first case pops up in those schools? Because I fully expect that in each one of those schools, there's going to be that first case, and it's not going to be a matter of weeks. It's going to be a matter of days.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And so anything you can do, and maybe we talk more with UNT about, they've got that public health department, our school over there, and it may be an excellent opportunity to develop a joint venture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know Mr. Manius has been talking to UNT. We've been giving some feedback, so we're excited about the partnership as well. So we're going to try to implement this afternoon, and if there's a glitch, we'll probably do it tomorrow. But I just want to make sure we keep in line with what DHHS asked us to do. We typically don't try to miss any deadlines, so the deadline was July 31st on Friday. And we just asked that we need to brief our commissioners court, so we're going to catch up.
We're still going to have daily reports.
Yes, sir.
But they're going to be a strict cutoff at 4 p.m., so it'll go from 4 p.m. to the 4 p.m. the next day.
And we'll add the asterisks on the dashboard so that public understands that, the data that we're presenting for the day before is at 4 p.m. cutoff, and then the next day's data will include all the updates. In the beginning, it mattered because the cases were low. We had a lot of interest in what's happening on an exact date-by-date basis, but I think with the huge volume of cases, even with the counts till midnight, some stuff is rolling in a couple of days later. So we'll be okay.
Consistency is important.
Yes, sir. All right. So just real quick on the national situation, if you look at that average line, it's starting to trend lower. So that's why I got a little excited last time. As a nation, we're starting to come down. This is like the second or third week that we're starting to see a decline in cases, and that's great news. And Texas and many other states that had huge outbreaks are starting to decline, so it's making the national data come down. That tells you how much of a caseload we were adding. Texas, Florida, Arizona, all these other states that are listed at the bottom, they're now in a decline. They were the ones adding the bulk of the illness to the national data. So this is great news. We need to continue doing what we're doing, wearing our face masks, social distancing, and practicing, good, hygiene all across. So that really seems to be helping. Hospital trends in Tarrant County are starting to look better. We're starting to decline. We're at about 500, I forget the exact number, but I think last I looked it was 557. We're at about 10% utilization of our beds with COVID-19. So again, this is all good news, and I get excited when all indicators start to point down. If it's one or two, I'm very cautious, but this is good news, and we need to continue the effort to make this come down further. Case trends, as you can see, I mean, we peaked around the week of 4th of July. I think the 6th of July was the starting date or whatever. That week was the highest. We had about almost 4,500 cases reported that week. And this data takes a while to catch up. As you know, I reported 4,000, then it went to 4,200, and now it's about 4,500, but I think we're pretty firm there. The positivity rate is starting to come down. It's kind of flatlined over the last 3 or 4 days. That's okay. But we were at the peak about 20% positivity rate on a 7-day average, and we're at about 13.5%. So that's a significant decline over the last few weeks. So this is good news. We're not below the ideal 10%, and the real goal is to be below 5%. But, you know, that's a long ways to go. But this is good trend data that we're starting to trend down. Texas has seen a similar trend. They were at the peak about 17%, and they're down to about 13.5%, just like we are. So all indicators are pointing lower. That's why I would call it good news. And this final thing here, COVID-like illness trend. This was the early warning system, and it warned us or told us that we're starting to trend down, and that has started to come true in other data that we've seen. The only issue that we're starting to see is deaths. I think it's a catch-up from all the surge that we had. There was a lot more cases, and finally we're starting to see a lot more deaths. They're not trending up by any means. They're kind of flatlining, but we've had some heavy weeks. A couple of weeks have been heavier. You know, they were record weeks, but overall, I think we're still fairly flat on the death data, not a dramatic surge, but it's heavier. And it's unfortunate because these were, you know, preventable issues, but it is, you know, what we see after a huge surge in cases. So how do we bend the curve in Tarrant County? Because we've talked about it, we've bent it, and then it kind of went back up, and now we're again trying to bend it down. We continue to wear masks everywhere. That seems to be a big component on what we're seeing with our data. So it seems to be working. We need to keep doing it. Stay home as much as possible. And the reason I say that is I know the economy is important, and we're looking to reopen it fully as much as we can. Schools are going to reopen. But if schools open and we're going up, we're asking for trouble. But if we stay home as much as possible and push our data down, then schools reopen, then there's a good chance that we'll be able to sort of handle any outbreaks or surges that may be occurring with that occurring. And then again, stay 6 feet away from others and avoid large group gatherings. And a couple of points on the school guidance, right? I mean, you mentioned we're working on school guidance from public health. We're going to possibly have a call with them this week, towards the end of the week, to go over some details on how they can prepare. Because the original plan was to ask them to stay closed for a longer period of time. Situation didn't look right. There was an AG opinion that that's not a good way to go. And the only comment I would have is that the health opinion still matters. We still believe that was the right choice, but we understand that school districts are starting to make decisions, and it's different. Some are opening, you know, September 8th. Some are opening in last week of August, so different dates are starting to appear, and that's okay. We'll work with all of them to give them good advice on how to safely reopen. It's not going to be a zero-risk scenario like what we were saying, stay home. It's going to be a low or medium-risk scenario depending on how well they're prepared. So our guidance to public schools is going to be very important, and we'd like for them to partner with us to follow that guidance so that they can continue to operate as safely as possible.
And I think they're eager to do that. I think, I don't know whether your call is with the superintendents or whether it's with the director of nursing in most of those districts. Don't forget the private schools.
Yes, sir.
We've been talking with them about the asthma 411, and we're having to make adjustments to that because in the past they used the nebulizers when there was an asthma deal. That's not necessarily the best thing to be doing with the COVID-19 around. So we're trying to make some adjustments there, and I can just tell you their directors of nursing for some of these school districts are really looking. You may be able to do a kind of a, let's have a big call and talk with them on a general basis, but I think each one of them are going to be looking for some very individualized guidance and review, and that may be where you're really going to have, because again, I know your people are tired. I know they're worn out.
Yes, sir.
But these folks really need some assistance, and that may be where we have to try to enter into some joint venture to help.
Absolutely. And we'll continue to work with Mr. Manius' office to sort of plan on how to do that. It might be a couple of calls. Certainly the director of nursings want to talk about contact tracing in a school and how to handle any children that may show symptoms. So it's going to be geared towards that. But also there's going to be guidance on school plans, which may be more administrator type discussion, like how do you want to make a school-based decision.
Cooks is doing, we're looking at doing some almost virtual workshops that would be recorded and would be online to help with the asthma 411 portion. It might very well be that you could do, in step with that, you could also do here are some general things, record that, and then put it out there so that they could look at that on a when possible basis, and then specifically call in with questions in their particular instance.
Sure. And since you mentioned earlier about the software solution, I just want to explain, because people listening might be like, okay, what did they do? So we last week, Commissioners Court authorized us to purchase a solution called Everbridge. Now, it's generally used in emergency management as a notification tool. We've got it coupled with some public health choices and a electronic survey. So we're contacting people through that automated tool. It does phone calls, text messaging. It gives you options. You can complete an online survey. You can call our hotline to speak with a contact tracer, or you can choose an option that I want to, have you call me, and then we have a contact tracer call you. So it does a lot of that initial work. And then we're seeing a lot of surveys getting filled out. I think the last I checked, there were like 450 some surveys already that were completed by people online using our tool. So all of that data comes into our database system. And this is kind of phase one of modernization of our work, if you will. And then in the next couple of weeks, we're going to add something called SARA Alert. And we're really excited about it. That's created by American Public Health Laboratories and NACCHO. And it's a public health tool that does the daily monitoring of cases and contacts, again, in an automated fashion. So it's going to help us sort of do it in a better way and, not have to wait on calling somebody, see if they're willing to talk or feeling better. They can do it at their own time, send us a text message, and it comes into our system. So it's kind of keeping up with the times and leveraging technology to do our work better.
So it's a call as well as a text message?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes, sir. It's the same thing. It's just it's on the back end. Everbridge is on the front end. So both tools combined is really going to help us get through our workload. And we appreciate you guys letting us have these tools, and thank you for letting us continue to modernize the way we do things.
Any questions for Vinny?
Thank you for all you do, Vinny.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Have a good day. Again, thank your employees for all the work they're putting in.
So, Your Honor, do you want to go through the audience participation forms first? You want us to do item number 1 under our section? We just have a few comments as it relates to the various declarations. Then we can go into audience participation.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay. Great.
Let me do that.
So we can go to item number 1 under the administrator section. Once again, we have had the governor's order has been in place now for a while, and it continues to be in place. There was one thing that we would like to report, and we are going to ask that we get a motion to receive and file. The county judge issued another executive order, which was dated July 31st, 2020. And what this did was extend the order that he had issued previously concerning the wearing of masks in county buildings, and that this order is one that would expire on August 31st.
I would just mention that also extended the order with regards to business requirement for their employees and or customers to also be wearing masks.
Thank you, Your Honor. And as it relates to that, before we take an action on that, which we are going to ask for court action, and I believe the District Attorney's Office has already seen the Attorney General's opinion, which was dated yesterday, and it confirms the authority not only of the governor but also of the county judge and the Commissioner's Court to do those activities that are included in your executive order. So with that, we're requesting that the Commissioner's Court approve the executive order which was issued by Judge Whitley and dated July 31st, 2020.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So, Your Honor, we are now on item number 2, and we have several different things that we want to present on that, but we also have audience participation forms as it relates to that particular item. So,
Mr. Manius, and I don't know if this is going to be covered later on, but weren't we also going to receive and file the rescission of the public health authorities?
that is going to be under item number 2.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and go forward with our audience participation. I'll try to call 3 names because I know several people may be in the back. The first 3 will be a Blanca, Marfern. I'm not real sure exactly how to read that last one. The next one is Audie, and again, I can't read their writing, and then Janet Jackson. So the first one is, if Blanca is here, please come forward at this time. We'll give them a second to come around from the other side. Blanca, Audie, or Janet Jackson? I hear somebody coming.
They're on the way.
Come forward. Are you Blanca?
Yes, sir.
Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I pray to God that your eyes be open and your ears and hearts ready and receptive to receive the information that we will present to you. And my greatest point here is, why are we locked down? This is the question that we should all be asking ourselves. Why are we locked down for a virus with 1/3 of the deaths that we had last year from the flu? It's a good question, isn't it? Number 2, why are doctors, medical doctors, like Yvette Lozano in Dallas, like Dr. Buttar, like Dr. Lipton, like Dr. Kaufman, like White Coat Summit, like Dr. Emmanuel, being silenced, banned and censored and silenced when they are on the front lines actually treating COVID patients? Number 3, why are they preventing the prescribing of medication, precisely hydroxychloroquine, with a success rate in Dr. Solenko's case, which started it, 699 patients completely healed of this phantom virus. Well, it's not a phantom virus because it was created in a laboratory and it was released upon our country as a bioterrorist attack. But are we asking the right questions? Why are we spending $295 million that Abbott gave to hire contract tracers, like that doctor was saying, to come into our homes, take our children, and say, we're doing it for your good? Isn't that what Hitler did to the Nazis when he put them in the train? It's for your good. My question is, why are we not questioning? Why are we not questioning why they are hiding hiding is the correct word. Hiding the truth from the public. When a mask is holding back the oxygen from coming out and from the healthy breathing, why are they making us put on a mask? Isn't that what they're doing in China? Isn't communist China? Isn't who? Excuse me?
2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. Can I get an extra? No? Okay. Well, why is who taking advice, the World Health Organization? One good thing that Trump did was knock out all the funding to them because they're connected to the communists and they're the ones that are calling the shots. Why are we walking around like masks like we're in China, in communist China? Why is Germany, here's another good question, why is Germany, where the Nazis started, where all that mess started, got hip to what's going on, and they are in masses protesting this mask? If I had a meter right now, I would put it to my mouth, put on a mask just to show you that there is a consequence. Why? The question is, let's start thinking again. We've been mesmerized. We've been hypnotized. We have been made to believe lies because, like Eichmann said during the Hitler administration, if you tell a lie long enough and often enough, the people will believe it.
3 minutes.
Thank you, Blanca. Next is Andy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Andy Gonzalez. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men, as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Consider the poet's words, if you will. I yearn for the day when everyone in this country will live out King's dream, and they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Now consider, not black, not white, but the segregation of the masked and unmasked. I had a dream of walking through a public library where bathrooms and water fountains were labeled masked and unmasked. A grocery store already erasing the lines of free markets to an unmasked population. For what? A sociology experiment? Communism? Socialism in America? Under the guise of fear, health, and safety, a disease so minor that 99.8% of people survive it. The globalist agenda is at full speed right now. The media, the government establishments have created an invisible war upon an entire global population through fear and propaganda. How can we allow this to continue? The very medical industry itself has made grave errors. Even the doctor we heard today have to clean up the numbers.
2 minutes.
They've made grave errors to the point 9.5% of every hospitalization, according to Johns Hopkins research, ends in medical death. Medical error. Medical error is death. 9.5%. If I ran a business and 9.5% of my patient or my clients died because of my error, I'm pretty sure I'd be out of business. But yet here we are, continuing to allow them to practice, and I love doctors, the ones who do no harm. Okay, but we have a well-oiled machine of finance going. It was rated as the third leading cause of death in the U.S. in 2016. Medical error was rated as the third leading cause
3 minutes.
of death.
Thank you,
Can
Andy.
I continue, please?
No, ma'am. That's it.
Okay.
Ms. Jackson, followed by Sherrod Perry, followed by Donnie Nevels, followed by, I believe it's Rebecca Rogers.
Your time started.
Why did he leave?
Go ahead.
Today, I'm here. I'm Janet Jackson, and I'm out here as an ambassador for Christ, which our country was founded on. We are created with unalienable rights by our Creator. I am reminded of the life of Stephen in Acts 7 as he was stoned by Saul, who became Paul, on his road to Damascus. So I look at each one of you, and I pray for you every single week. I pray for your minds that have been blinded. I pray for your eyes that have been closed. I ask that God Almighty open your ears and open your eyes and soften your hearts. I do not appreciate Glenn Whitley getting up and walking out of this room because he knows he is not upholding the oath that he took to our Constitution to uphold our liberties, to uphold our freedom of speech, to uphold our religious beliefs. He has defied his oath. He is a domestic terrorist in this country, and anyone else that goes along with these mandates, it has become a domestic terrorist in this country. This disease, this COVID virus, is nothing new. Actually, Dr. Simone Gold said that. She said this virus is 78% identical to SARS-CoV-1 that was back in 2003, and that even with Dr. Fauci signing off on a study that was done by NIH in 2005 of hydroxychloroquine. I would like to know why our Department of Health, who is not a doctor, is regulating and restraining doctors who have a license to practice medicine and diagnose and prescribe treatment are being withheld their right to do that. We have a right as the public to know the truth. I stand against Facebook coming in here. I do not want another Facebook data collection center. They have no right to collect data on anyone to be tracked or traced. They have violated our First Amendment rights constantly on Facebook. They shut down Google, Facebook, Twitter, shut down the frontline doctors. They were doctors all across the United States that have stood up for the truth of the American people to not live in fear, which y'all all seem to want to manipulate all of us to live in fear. Fear is not what we should be living in. Fear is actually false evidence appearing real, which is what y'all are doing with these COVID numbers. It's fraud, and it should not be put up with. The American people, we have had weeks of people coming in here speaking to you, Mr. Judge Glenn Whitley, who has not maintained honor, who has not maintained his oath, who has not been honorable before we, the people, because you have not upheld your oath.
Sherrod Perry.
All right, good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right, so I was here last week actually as well, and the main point that I made last week was, as they've been saying, actually, they've already told you this, that the figures that the CDC came up with back in May. I mean, another team in Oxford came up with these similar numbers. Another group called the Physicians for Informed Consent, nonprofit, they all came up with a similar infection fatality rate, which is somewhere around 0.2 0.02%. So if you flip that around, as I've said last time, you basically get a survival rate that's well over 99%, 99.8% or whatever you want to say. So these are the figures that are coming out. At the beginning of all this, I understand the fear in March because we didn't know what we were facing. You probably saw videos of people in China passing out. So the fear then might have been warranted in March. I was one of those who felt that fear. But as the data has come out, and the more I looked into it on my own and stopped listening to what NBC and ABC and CBS were telling me, because if you watch, as they've been saying, if you watch mainstream news, you get one side of the story. As soon as you do your own research, you start hearing different viewpoints, and what you're seeing now is those viewpoints are being silenced. So again, there's an alternative solution to this that's not being talked about enough. And essentially, again, I have the charts here. This is, this is your data. This is the Tarrant County data. We keep talking about cases, and of course, that long trend line is the case line, and that line is the deaths line. Now, to me, as a mathematician, if this line is shooting up like this, I would expect the deaths line to shoot up as well. But the deaths are remaining relatively flat. So again, there's this perception that cases is what we should be fearing. To me, what matters to me are the deaths and the death rate. And if I see the case rate shooting up like this, but I see the death rate, basically almost staying flat, then to me, that tells me that more cases, but not as many deaths, tells me that, again, the death rate is actually getting slower or getting lower. So again, all of this fear, as they've been talking about, the fear is being pushed and it's being sold to people, and the numbers don't bear the fear out. As a matter of fact, and all these measures, the reason people comply is because they're afraid, because they don't understand. And I don't know where you all stand on this. I think where you're getting, I don't know where you're getting your information from. But again, the point that I've been trying to make is, again, if you look at your charts, again, here's another chart of that long red bar are the percentage of cases. Basically, I'll just tell you, 68%. 68% of the cases in Tarrant County, 68% of those who have passed from COVID were 65 years or over. Okay.
3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Next is Donnie Nevels, followed by Rebecca Rogers, followed by Kevin Moore.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Yes, my name is Donnie Nevels, and actually this is my first time coming in, and newbie, but I'm very, very concerned about many of the issues that are before us. And one of the things that's been said, I'm going to be a little bit repetitive, but one of the things is I've heard this saying, nothing but fear itself. My concern is to make sure that whatever decisions that we make, that the research has been done. We've talked about the numbers. We've made the comparisons, and we can all agree, certainly, that a lot of the decisions regarding the issues of before us, mask wearing, deaths, and COVID, and whatever, a lot of it is politically motivated. So, what do we do? What do we do about it? When something's politically motivated, we have to dig in deep into our own hearts. And like I said, once again, look at the research. Look at the research. And the numbers, based on what I've heard today, the death rate is down, it's flattened out. There's even with the testing, certainly we may see some rates higher than others. But the bottom line is, who remains with us? And we've seen a lot of errors in different states in handling of these cases. But we just want to make sure that we do that is right. At the end of the day, we want to be able to go home and make sure that we've said the right thing, done the right thing, and make sure that our family, and those and our friends and whoever, even our enemies, are well. I mean, we are a people. We are a people. We're just not political parties, as they say. We're a people. And we've seen the movements, the BLMs and so on. But I look at ALM. All lives matter. every single one of us. We're just one people under God and where our Constitution established it. So my consideration, my concern is that we continue to look at it. I've had some grandkids, and most grandparents, they love their grandkids and their kids, of course. But I think
grandkids more than their kids. That gets me in trouble with my wife, but that's okay. We'll give you a little bit more time for that.
That's okay. They're so wonderful. They're so wonderful, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about this. Of course, it brings up another issue, so I'll stay back on point. But anyway, mostly the education factor of it. We're talking about the need to reopen the schools. Certainly, I don't want anything to happen to any one of them or anybody else's kids for that matter. I'm concerned about lives. But I think, and what has been told is when they're kind of stranded at home this length of time, one of the bigger things that makes it difficult for them is the fact that they're not interacting. They're not being touched, they're not being hugged, and certainly we've got to make some restrictions. But I hope that we'll consider the fact that schools need to be reopened.
3 minutes.
That's it? Okay. I think you'll give me a few more seconds.
Did you give them a few more? Yeah, give them about 30 seconds more.
Okay. We've got to consider the fact that they need some interaction. And the education. We can all agree on this too as well, that over the last maybe 2 generations, one of the things is they don't understand. Many people of color, since I'm a person of color, I can speak on this, don't know who Frederick Douglass is. So the education piece is real important. I could go on an hour just on that, but I won't. I can't. But consider those things, the importance of opening up our schools, certainly making restrictions, protecting the teachers themselves, and making sure that they're safe, and so on and so forth. So, but anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nevels.
You have a good day.
Rebecca Roger. Followed by Kevin Moore, followed by Doug Hines, and that's all the audience participation forms I have at this time. We don't have that. If you would go back outside and fill one out, then I'll be sure and let you speak.
My name is Rebecca Rogers. This week has been one in which censorship continues to rear its ugly head. We have seen politicians, big tech companies, and big pharma continue to try to censor those that seek to spread the truth rather than lies. We saw highly qualified frontline doctors speak at the White Coat Summit in D.C. only to be shut down quickly because those in power fear the truth will be observed and realized by the masses. Dr. Fauci, who has been repeatedly wrong throughout this entire pandemic, actually knew as early as 2005 about the benefits chloroquine had on strains of coronavirus. He published this study in the virology journal that he runs. Like always, I have printed this study for you to review. Dr. Simone Gold, a frontline doctor, stated in an interview this week that COVID-19 shouldn't have ever been classified as a novel virus, as it's not novel. It is 70% identical to the SARS and can be treated in a similar manner. There are several effective treatments for the COVID-19, and many doctors have spoken out about it, only to be censored. It is apparent that our officials conveniently turn a deaf ear to those who are actually working with patients. These words are from a former Texas representative and MD, Dr. Stephen Holtze, states, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who substitutes darkness for light and light for darkness, who substitutes bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." Isaiah 5:20. As he stated so eloquently, I never dreamed that I would have to face the prospect of living in a socialist, communist United States of America. The freedoms and liberties that we experience in America have been purchased by the blood of American patriots throughout our nation's history, are rapidly being destroyed. How can this be happening in America, I ask? I believe as a nation we have turned away from God and have rejected him and his standards. Here are some results that we have seen. People are being fined and arrested for opening their businesses, churches, and for not wearing masks, while others are allowed to riot and commit violence. Immigrants with tuberculosis and other infectious disease are welcome, but we are required to lock down our businesses, quarantine ourselves, wear a mask, and never touch our face or nose, while unelected government health bureaucrats want to prevent a virus from spreading, which would
have the effect of allowing society to build herd immunity. Bill Gates wants every person in the world to be forced to vaccinate. If we disagree, we are deemed an evil person for believing in medical choice. Irish doctors and German engineers who want to immigrate to the United States must undergo a rigorous vetting process, but sex traffickers and criminals enter through the southern borders with impunity. People who have never owned slaves should pay slavery reparations to people who have never been enslaved in their life. It's un-American for the census to count how many Americans are in America. We have abandoned biblical values and morality. We are living in an upside-down world where right is wrong and wrong is right, where moral is immoral and immoral is moral, where good is evil and evil is good, where killing murderers is wrong, but killing innocent babies is right, where darkness is light and light is darkness. Americans must wake up. The great unsinkable ship, Titanic America, has hit an iceberg and is taking on water and sinking fast. What will it be? Slavery and chains and freedom and liberty. The choice is yours to make. Judge Whitley and council members, please be a part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Next is Kevin Moore. Followed by Doug Hines. Kevin, yes, go ahead and come on in, sir.
My name is Kevin Moore. My original intention was to talk about something completely different than what I'm about to say today, but for some reason I felt very compelled to talk about another issue that is currently ravaging our nation. It's a contagious virus called fear. This past Sunday, I got into a small single propeller plane and climbed to an elevation of 10,000 feet. The plane rattled, shook, and dipped as it struggled along, and after about 10 minutes, the side door was pushed open, and I voluntarily jumped out. I didn't need the president, the governor, a judge, a police officer, or even my parents to hold my hand. I knew the risk, signed my waivers, and took my chances. I made sure the guys taking me up knew what they were doing, and I prayed for protection. If it didn't work out, I would have fallen to my death, but it was a calculated risk that I chose to take. Most people think that's crazy, but I was just pursuing life, liberty, and happiness. Today, there's too much fear going around. I think it's a bigger problem and more contagious than almost anything else. Here's my simple conclusion about what is going on and how it relates to fear. Fearful people want to control other people, and in some weird way, they want to be controlled by others. Fearful people get angry when they can't control those who aren't fearful because fear is their biggest weapon. They threaten others with the fear of illness, death, fines, being ostracized or ridiculed, or even losing their job. Fear causes people to do a lot of stupid things, and I can't think of one wise decision I've ever made when I've been motivated by fear. That's one of the reasons Christians are persecuted all around the world, is because they believe in free will along with personal responsibility, and they aren't fearful. I wish that were more true of the Christian church in America, because we'd have a very different country than we are living in right now. Over the past 2 years, I've started to really understand what the Apostle Paul tells us in the book of Timothy. God did not give me a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And unfortunately, those three attributes have no place in the government's ultimate control agenda, do they? The Bible tells me to fear not those who can kill just the body, but him who can kill both the soul and the body. For a long time, Christians in America didn't have to think about this, but unfortunately, there's strong evidence that that's starting to change. So what's the opposite of fear? It's faith. I saw an interesting quote recently that says, faith will always look like rebellion to those people who live in fear. I look around, and on the surface, it seems there's no hope for the challenges we face in America, and while that may be the facts, it's not the truth. To outsiders, I'm sure it appeared when David faced Goliath, Daniel was thrown in the lion's den, Joseph was thrown in the pit by his brothers, and Esther risked her life to save her people. These people weren't trusting the government to save them. In fact, it was often the government who was against them. They had their hope in someone much more powerful. The solution to what's going on in America isn't going to come from government regulations, executive orders, or mandated laws. The solution is already burning in the hearts of many brave warriors across this country who know their God and do their great exploits. It's found in 2 Chronicles 7, and I quote, "When I shut up the heavens so there's no rain, or command locusts to devour the land, or send a plague among my people, if my people who are called by name, my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land." Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to the prayers offered in this place. I respectfully ask you, Judge, that you make a declaration of prayer and fasting for Tarrant County and our nation, and watch what happens.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Doug Hines. I hear somebody coming. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Commissioner. Judge.
Doug Hines. I'm a retiree from Keller. I've been in Tarrant County for 20 years. I have a couple things I'd like to talk to this commission about. I got two asks on my agenda anyway. One, I'd like to have the order that was just adopted today, dated July 31st, further restricting us and keeping this this COVID pandemic scam lockdown in effect and the mask order in effect. I'd like to see that rescinded. I'd also like to see this commission do everything in its power to ensure that school is opened on time this year and forever. And I also want to say that the local control order that was issued a while back, I know Attorney General Paxton took care of that, but I'd like this group, this commission, you, Judge, and the commission, to do everything you can to make sure schools are reopened. The one thing I want to say about what all this, and I don't want to be too repetitive, but all this stuff that's going on here, the one thing I don't see is a lot of analysis. I see a lot of administrative stuff going on about what we're going to do, how we're going to count this, how we're going to display that, how this is going to look up on the board. I'd like to see a lot more analysis about where this threat really is in a balanced approach as to the risk and reward. What are the risks of the lockdowns we've been enduring? What are the risks to the economy? What are the risks to the students in this country? What are the risks to the social isolation? The whole psyche of this country is being damaged for what? And that's what the for what is. Right now, every death counts. We have 396 deaths, according to what I heard this morning, in Tarrant County. And I'm only concerned about Tarrant County because I'm a Tarrant County resident, and that's what we're here to do, and you're the commission for Tarrant County. So that means that out of the approximately 2 million population of Tarrant County, there's 1 out of 5,050 people in Tarrant County have allegedly, if you believe the numbers, died of the COVID. That means in this county, you have a chance. There's 5,049 people out of every 5,050 that have survived COVID. I just want that to sink in for a second.
2 minutes.
And what are we doing about it? We're locking it down. We're doing all these restrictions. And what really galls me, when I see what's going on with respect to the current data, the hospitalization rate, percentage beds of COVID is declining. The positive tests per person tested is falling. The deaths are falling. All that is coming down in the right direction, even though it's a relatively small problem to begin with. And yet we're continuing the restrictions. And it'll be a long time that people remember who stood up for our constitutional freedoms, our freedom of speech, our freedom of assembly, our freedom of religion, which has particularly been something that's galled me, has been under this false pandemic scam that's been eroded in a way that, and this long will be remembered, those who stood against freedom and those who stood for freedom in this county, in this state, in my town of Keller, my governor, my mayor in Keller, etc.
3 minutes.
So, thank you, Mr. Hines.
Thank you.
Imagine Tosca.
Hello and good morning. Excuse me, may I have more computer time? Several workers said no, so I asked management, but he too said no. Well, let me speak with your boss, I asked. She's downstairs, let me go get her for you. Long story short, there was a pacing officer that asked for my ID, but my refusal of giving him my ID got me arrested and charged, as well as banning me from the library. For asking for more computer time, all of this occurred. This was the government's first whack at bullying me out of pursuing a civil lawsuit against New Jersey Transit PD. With 3 key pieces of evidence, I was ready to take this to trial and get justice. But the Superior Courts in Atlantic City refused to let me get justice, and so they too were involved with 2 of the 4 false arrests that occurred within 9 months of the incident. Instead of getting justice, I received a criminal record, paid fines for the false arrests, even did community service, as I was bullied by the government. Over and over again, the government trampled on many of my rights, including my civil liberties. That was just the starting of my injustice, and 6.5 years later, after being silenced with a fake criminal record, I'm still voiceless. As a woman, I've noticed it was hard to be heard. Being a woman, poor and white, that was 3 strikes against me to be ignored by the media. Instead of giving me justice, the government cashed in on funds by leaving me a slave to sin. The Bible says a good name is better than riches. Instead of running to men, drugs, or alcohol, I ran to God. Instead of condemning anyone, running to God allowed me to forgive. But I'm still due my good name back.
2 minutes.
Having to deal with all this, now the government wants to bully me some more and force me, as well as others, to wear masks for what seems to be a loophole/red tape in an attempt on generating revenue through insurance purposes. USA Today reports that the insurance payments for COVID-19 pneumonia costs are up to $13,000, and on one for a ventilator is $39,000. A title on an internet article reads, "The CDC confesses to lying about COVID-19 death numbers." Let me close by saying I dressed up like Lady Liberty today because Lady Liberty represented truth and order in the ancient societies, well as the morality of the justice system. Since the 16th century, Lady Justice has been portrayed wearing a blindfold. The blindfold represents the ideal that justice should be applied without regard to wealth, power, or other statuses.
Thank you. That concludes our audience participation. Mr. Ranius, at this time, would you like to continue?
Yes, sir. Okay, we are going to continue on item number 2. Just a point, Your Honor, you asked about the retraction of the joint control order, which was issued by the local health authorities in Tarrant County. We did cover that under item number 5. It was a consent item, but we filed that with the court.
I see that. Thank you.
Okay. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to ask Guidehouse if they will start their presentation. Katie, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here, GK.
Okay, if you'll go ahead and start.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners, or I guess it's good afternoon now since it's 12:17. As usual, we're going to start with our project status update on slide 2. So as of right now, all of our activities are on track. We're currently reviewing the FEMA project worksheet. We're working with the county to revise the ILA payroll guidance, continuously monitoring legislation and grant opportunities, as well as providing guidance on eligibility determination. So today we're going to be discussing the 4 pillars and the grant opportunities update. You'll notice that this week we will be excluding the expenditures update and funding source allocation. As the county team is focused on meeting the deadline for completing the budget, we will resume the presentation for the expenditures and the funding allocations once the budget has been completed. Are there any questions on this slide? If not, I will pass it over to Rachel, and she will do the update on the 4 pillars.
Thank you, Katie. Just a few updates on this slide this week. Testing operations are continuing. The Small Business Grant Assistance Program applications continue to be reviewed, and grants will be awarded on a continuous basis as approved. The Rental Assistance Program and NGO Assistance Program are continuing. Applications for the NGO program will be reviewed by August 7th. ILA distributions have all been awarded, and additional guidance from the county on those awards are being drafted. And these concern payroll expenses and updated reporting requirements. Are there any questions on this slide?
Just a couple, and I guess GK, you can probably, on the COVID testing, we now have how many sites that are permanent sites that are open?
We're in the process of opening a total of 4. We have not opened any at this time yet, but we're going to discuss a little bit of that on some of the locations and the contracts that we have either entered into or we're about to enter into.
Well, so how many we have testing sites that are going? I guess they're TDM sites.
Oh, okay. So TDM is running a testing site in Arlington, And it's my understanding that they're also going to open up a site at Jarvis Diamond Hill High School. Besides that, there are sites that we have opened up in conjunction with the city of Fort Worth. That includes the one site at J.D. Elders, and also a site that is at the Dickies Arena. We're talking with the city of Fort Worth about opening up one of our permanent sites. We're looking in the southwestern part of the county. And in continuation of that, that's with a company called Vault. And we already have a contract with them, and we're really.
So that was southwest or southeast?
It's going to be southwest. We're looking at an area that Commissioner Brooks has helped us locate. That's going to be somewhere in the area of the Resource Connection. It won't be on the campus there, but it might be Clarksfield. It might be TCC South Campus in that particular area. But we're trying to partner with the city of Fort Worth on that particular one, since it's in the city limits of Fort Worth, and we do have an agreement with Fort Worth where that there's a split cost. That's the same as we have at J.D. Elders and also at Dickies Arena. We are in the process. I believe that we probably will come back to you next week with a contract with Hanyu. This is a company that had run the Arlington site, had run several sites with Tatum, and we're looking at locations both in the northeast and in the northwestern part.
So you're going to use Hanyu for both 3 and 4?
I don't think it's going to be 3 and 4. What we're trying to do is something that the Commissioners Court had asked us to do, is to get probably 4 vendors so that we can test those vendors. We have another vendor that we're talking with now that we believe is probably going to be a third vendor. We also have a company called Go Get Tested. I believe, Vinny, is that the... Vinny might have...
He went to get tested.
Let's Get Tested. And I believe you're familiar with that, Your Honor. Yeah. That's a saliva-based test. And we're going to be using that as...
So that's a saliva-based? Because I thought that was a...
No, I believe
thought Vault was the only saliva testing that we used.
Okay, so I may be confused with Vault. I'll need to get Vinny in. Your Honor, we've been working with all these different companies. And
I understand.
I will tell you one thing, though. We're seeing more and more. Vinny, is Go Get Tested? Vinny, is Go Get Tested a saliva test, or is it a swab?
Let's Get Checked.
Let's Get Checked.
Yes, they're a nasal swab.
Nasal swab.
Lower nasal.
But more and more groups that are coming on that we're interested in are moving toward the saliva test, which is
I think a much easier test.
And the compared to the other PCR type tests, it's as effective. So we're trying to move more into that particular area simply because it's less intrusive. We think we can move people through lines faster than that. And so that's what we're doing on the testing.
The TDM tests at Diamond and Arlington, as well as the Dickies and J.D. Elder, are not considered to be one of our 4 permanent. We're still looking at those.
They're not our 4 permanent, but we are partnering with the city of Fort Worth, and those are being run off a contract that the Commissioners Court has approved.
When do you think we'll have our 4 permanent sites up?
Oh, Judge, I can't say, but we're moving as quickly as possible on those. One of the things that we're going to be talking with you about on this particular agenda item is the purchase of tents and things such as that. One of the interesting thing about this is that when we first began discussing with these different testing groups, just a very few had the ability to do the entire package. And it looks like at least one of these now are going to come online that at one time was questionable as far as doing the entire package, and now they're going to be able to do that. So, I can't tell you that it's going to be next week, but I can tell you it's as soon as we can.
A couple of weeks, maybe?
Yes. And if we get this deal worked with the city of Fort Worth in the southwestern part of the county or down south, then that'll be our first permanent site.
Okay, and then on the grants, the economic stimulus grants, how much have we approved now? And
okay, so that was going to be our next part of this presentation, but we'll be more than happy to cover it right now. Okay. So on the economic stimulus program, and the county auditor's office is running point on that as of Friday. This is Friday data. We have awarded 315 assistance grants, and for a total award of $2.7 million.
2.7 million?
Yes. Compared to what we had last week, last week we had a little over 100 that we were handling. Now we created over 200 new applications and processed those. So, we've been saying all this time that you're going to see a faster response in doing that. The auditor's office is doing a great job on that. And our office is helping also, but we're moving very quickly through those deals. So
that 2.7 probably.
Let me add just one thing. Almost all of the initial applications have been assigned and are being processed. The slowdown now is we're just having to do the secondary review, but we almost processed all of the initial applications, and then it's a matter of reperforming or processing those. So again, we anticipate no more than 2 weeks to be done.
And that 2.7, I'm assuming, will have gone out by because it's probably on the claims today, or a good part of it.
There's almost 1.8 million on the claims today. There's other 900,000 went out last year.
Great, thank you very much.
So we can give you some additional numbers. We talked a little bit about the testing. We talked about the economic stimulus.
Do we want them to go back to the other two? I guess.
Let me give you those, and we'll ask them to finish up. Okay. Okay. So on the social services, the rental program, and I believe that you all received this document again yesterday that I'm reading from. But on the rental program, we have approved a dollar amount of $583,000 so far. We've received 361 applications. We've approved 163 of those. 60 of those applications are still in the process of being renewed or approved and evaluated. We're going to ask in item number 3 on the agenda, we're going to talk about the application process, a little bit about that, modified because we had done the original 3 months, and we talked about doing a total of 6 months. The first 3 were more catching up, some in arrears. We had to change our application so that it wouldn't be in arrears, but it would be on a regular time, not in advance. And Mr. Singleton is going to be talking about that. On the NGO program, let me get to that. We have a total of 148 applications which we've received. We've sent 34 of them to the city of Fort Worth for their review. We are looking at 83 applicants ourselves here. We have completed the analysis of about 31 of those that should receive some funding, even funding to pay for expenses that they have already incurred, and then setting them up for a reimbursement as we move forward. And then we have about 52 that we need to ask for some additional information. We have about 31 of those, 148 are ineligible to receive the NGOs. So you can tell we're working on that particular item. And then finally, on the local partners, we reported last week that we have concluded the distribution of funds to our local municipal partners. It's a little over $62 million. When you look at all 4 pillars, the local partners is pretty much complete. Economic stimulus is going to be complete in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. The testing piece is going to be something that is long-term, and I believe that we anticipate the complete review of all the applications for the NGOs to be completed by August 7th. So we're working on them.
Okay.
Okay, so Katie, was it you that we stopped, or who needs to finish up the report?
Yeah, we can finish up. If we can, I think we were just about done with, yeah, we finished the county points of focus, so we can move on to the next slide, which is the county spent update grant opportunities. And so here provide an overview of grants that have been awarded or are expected to be awarded soon to the county. There are about $227 million in grant funds that have been already or will soon be received by the county. And since our last report, there have not been any new awards or receipts. So this one looks the same as the previous week that we've seen. Any questions on this slide? No. If not, that wraps up our report for this week.
So I would like to continue a report on what we're doing futuristically moving forward. As I said, we believe that we should have a contract with HUNU probably by next week, or we may actually sign that document this week and begin the process of setting up one of our permanent sites. Also, we reported last week that we're working with UNT Health Science Center, and we have a draft agreement that we're sending over to Dr. Williams and his team. It deals mainly with, in fact, right now it deals exclusively with contact investigations on the testing element of it. That's to get 45 FTEs on board. We're really excited about that particular contract. Not only will it do a lot for public health, but the quality of the individuals that we're going to be, that are going to come over and help us. These are individuals who are, master's degree people in the health profession. They will either be in the School of Public Health, they'll be in the School of Pharmacy, which is I think is a very good thing to have. And then also they're going to be medical students that will help us do this research and investigation. So the quality of the work is something that we're looking forward to, and we want to reach out and thank Dr. Williams and the entire team at UNT for helping us put this group together. Now, on this particular agenda item, there is one item I'd like to talk to you about and ask. I'm going to ask that the Commissioners Court approve a particular action. One of the things when JP Elders was set up, it was set up and the city of Fort Worth brought out various tents and to work the lines. And the tents are very large tents. They're 40 by 40, then they have a 10-foot entrance. And so when we began to look at that site and look at how the flexibility there was to have those tents, I asked that, or I directed facilities and to get with purchasing, and we ordered 2 of those tents. Now, besides the tents, there's other things that we need to have in those tents. Obviously, air conditioning is critically important. As it gets colder, there's going to be needs for heaters. There's going to be needs for generators on that. And I sent you a document earlier today. It could have been yesterday, last night, that talked about the total expenditures for complete setup of operating those 2 40 by 40 tents, and along with the ACs and the heating elements, the cages that they'll fit in, and also the massive generator that is going to be needed to power that. The total cost on that is about $296,153. This is probably going to be one of the best buys that we do, because we will have and we'll own it with these tents, and they'll be flexible enough so that we can set them up in any location that we have space for. And it's not just for the testing, because we know that there's going to be a vaccine eventually for this virus. And if we're going to do mass vaccinations, then this would serve as a good vehicle for us to be doing that. So what I'm doing is requesting from the Commissioners Court a motion and a second and approval for us to proceed with the purchase of the 2 tents, the ancillary items such as air conditioners, heaters, the generator, and for an amount not to exceed $300,000.
DK, is that 2 generators?
That's one large generator, Commissioner, because what we saw at J.P. Elder, they were using both tents on one side. We very well may need to come back and get another generator if we separate those tents.
You do realize your spreadsheet says 2 generators.
Okay, well then I guess it's 2 generators. David Phillips is a unique individual. He puts those things in. So if it includes in there, then yes, we will do the 2 generators. I practice this stuff.
How do you secure these? Are they going to be fenced?
I'm sorry?
How do you secure them from vandalism?
We'll take them down if we're not
saying. You set them up. You're not going to take them down every day. They're going to be up overnight.
Yes, we'll use security. We'll have either some of our we'll have our law enforcement people there to secure it 24/7. When we do take these tents are anchored by large concrete blocks, up to 1,000-pound blocks. Mm-hmm. And so so the movement setting up and setting down is not going to be every night. It's only when we move it from site. So, okay. Commissioner Johnson, I was incorrect. That does include 2 generators.
And with that answer, I will move approval of your request.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, members of the court, that's all I have on item number 2, unless there's anything further we need to discuss about this. If not, we'll move to item number 3. And I'm going to ask Mr. Singleton to make that presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On June the 2nd, the court approved the guidelines for eligibility for tenants, and then on June the 23rd, the court approved the landlord agreement and some other administrative items. Since that time, some of the word arrears has caused us some issues to be able to process some things, some applications, because arrears typically means late, and we want to change the word arrears to the word due in both the tenant side and the landlord side, so it would help facilitate the payment process. I want to note that this is not to pay rent in advance; it's when it's due versus in arrears. So we'd ask the court to consider approving the revised rental assistance landlord agreement and a couple of the eligibility guidelines, and the other 2 bullets are the same as previously listed.
You need a motion for
Yes.
that? So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second just to see if we can go ahead and go forward.
Okay.
Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And then finally, members of the court, on item number 4, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve an interlocal agreement between Tarrant County and the UT Southwestern to provide $1 million in funding for the DFW COVID-19 Community Prevalence Study to be conducted by UT Southwestern and Texas Health Resources.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. One other thing that I would just mention, I know in the course of all of this discussion, as well as even prior to it, one of the big issues that we've talked about is mental health and the effects that COVID-19 is having, as well as the effect on mental health and what it affects our various police departments. Commissioner Brooks, as well as Mr. Manius and myself, have been in communications with some of the CEOs of the major hospitals here in Tarrant County. We had talked previously, and folks had traveled to look at mental health diversion centers, which basically would be available for police departments to be able to come and to potentially drop off folks who have been picked up. It would be exclusively for police departments. And we're still in the process of working through that. We've asked the hospitals, and we're doing a white paper right now, getting ready to put a white paper out to the hospitals. We're asking them for between $7 and $8 million to be set aside and to eventually develop a steady stream of where the funding could come from. I have asked at least for a placement, not any kind of but just for at least a new program placement in our budget for us to discuss in the coming weeks of $1 per citizen, or it'd be just a little over $2 million. And last night I asked the cities on the Mayor's Council to also begin to maybe put a little marker in their budgets to consider this. I know that Sharon has had conversations with the police chiefs, and she may wish to make some comments. And I know Commissioner Brooks has also been very active, and he may wish to make some comments on this. But some of this probably very little of it will be eligible for CARES Act money. There's a possibility that maybe some this year, but certainly into the future, we need a steady stream of money that would help us with this and going forward. Sharon or Commissioner Brooks, do either one of y'all want to add anything at this time?
My only comment, Your Honor, would be that this crisis diversion center is a missing piece in our local mental health infrastructure. The purpose of this would be to allow low-level, primarily misdemeanor offenders who have been encountered by a police officer and who are exhibiting signs of mental illness or behavioral challenges. They could be taken to this diversion center and diverted from the county jail to treatment at this diversion center rather than incarceration at the county jail. It's a model that we've seen work well in communities across the country. The model that we're looking specifically at is the one in Harris County, and it has done great things for their community, and we think our community would benefit as well from having such a facility to divert mentally ill, low-level offenders from incarceration to treatment.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Wilson?
If I may just add a couple of things. So this has been something that the Mayor's Council and this Commissioner's Court has been very interested in for several years. We've worked, you called a meeting, and with Commissioner Brooks called a meeting toward the end of last year and said it was time to make it happen. And I met with the chiefs of police, the Tarrant County Law Enforcement Executive Association. They've assigned a committee, and the association itself is very much in favor of this because they see it as an opportunity to take low-level, as Commissioner said, low-level misdemeanor defendants. Will probably start with criminal trespass cases. And those people, instead of going to jail, would go to this mental health diversion program. The police chiefs see it as a way to stop recidivism. They don't want to keep arresting the same mentally ill people for low-level cases. This is a true diversion program. You know, Tarrant County has a lot of court programs that are in existence after a person has been arrested, gone to jail, case filed. This is a true diversion program. It will be entry level by police agencies, and that person on that case will not go to the jail. Their case will not go to the DA's office. It will be a true diversion program. We think ultimately that it will be a cost saver for Tarrant County, and it will certainly be the just thing to do for these defendants.
Thank you. Thank you for your work on this. Okay, Ms. Glenn.
I move to receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second. We have a motion to second, receive and file the personnel agenda. Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. It's nice visiting with you.
Thank you. You too.
Mr. Beecham?
We have 5 items for your consideration this afternoon, almost afternoon. First item is in regards, it's a bid award recommendation in regards to RFQ 2021-02, RFQ for juvenile residential services. Our recommendation would be toward the 19 vendors as shown in the court communique for an amount of $2,400,000. If this item is approved, we're also seeking contract approval from the court.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is also a bid award recommendation for RFP 2021-06. It's an RFP for the Behavioral Management and Support Service for Juvenile Justice Alternative Education Program. Recommendation be toward the Lena Pope Home, the amount of $631,413. Again, if approved, we're seeking contract approval from the court.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, again, a bid award recommendation for bid 2021-66, signing a contract for short-term rental of cars, trucks, and vans. Recommendation be to award a pre-enterprise basis, awarding to Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4, item in regards to RFQ 2021-47. This is an RFQ for gas and oil mineral asset management services for county-owned properties. We are seeking approval to conduct negotiations based on the 4 rankings as shown in your court communique when necessary.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Last item in regards to RFP 2021-51. This was an RFP for scheduling and messaging software for the Information Technology Department. We received 2 proposals. During the evaluation process, it was determined that there was need for more clarity, in some cases simplification of the specifications. That being said, we are recommending rejection of both of the proposals we received, seeking to rebid with revised specifications.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Commissioner Allen has interlocal agreement on the agenda for today. I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
That includes all three of her interlocal agreements.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. It's item K1A through F. Commissioner Fickus.
Yes, I have an interlocal agreement with the city of Haslett and move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. I did take a vote on Commissioner. Okay. Are there any appointments today? Okay, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Please vote. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius? One briefing item.
We have one final briefing item. This deals with the budget hearings. First of all, make sure everyone knows that this coming Monday, the 10th, we are going to start our budget hearings here in Commissioner's Courtroom at 9 a.m. in the morning. So if you'll just put that on your schedule, I believe that we've notified all the court members and also all the department heads and elected officials as it relates to that. We want to just very briefly talk a little bit about what you may be seeing and some timelines as it relates to that. I think that the auditor has some comments she'd like to make as it relates to revenues. We do believe that our recommendation is going to be a tax rate that is the same as this year's tax rate. I will tell you, though, that over the last month or so, there's been a lot of hard work done on trying to calculate the tax rate, and it's because of what SB 2 did to us at the last legislative session. Ms. Burgess and her team have done a really good job on helping us. Obviously, the county auditor and her team have been heavily involved. Our office has been heavily involved in this, and we're working through all of that. We'll have a better understanding as far as the rate that we're going to be recommending. Helen is going to be presenting to you a balanced budget for next year, and with the supporting revenues. Just a couple of comments of what we already are seeing in this, and you'll get this in the budget letter that should be released Thursday of this week. And that is, we talked a little bit about TCDRS today. We have included a 19.5% investment in that, similar to what we've done the last several years. We still have we believe we're going to have a good amount in reserves. Judge Willie, you talked about the $2.1 million as it related to the mental health program. We've included that as a point to consider, and within our revenue streams that we'll be able to pay for that. We have some new positions that are going to be asked for, and we're going to be recommending those. We have capital. Capital currently is a little over $28 million, and in the numbers that we have seen, working with the auditor's office and with the tax office, we believe that we'll be able to bring you a balanced budget that maintains the current tax rate, which we're still not completely sure, but we know obviously that it's below the 3.5% increase that we're allowed without going back to the voters. In fact, we're still making those calculations, and we should have that answer probably by tomorrow. We'll have all that information for you come Monday, but you should see that in the budget letter that you're going to be getting on Thursday. And I believe that Helen is going to release the budgets to the individual departments. Helen, are you going to do that tomorrow? Tomorrow. So this is going to be a week when people are going to get their budgets. You'll get the budget letter that explains, what we're recommending, and And then finally, I believe that it's important now that we talk a little bit about a slight deviation on the revenue calculations. And Ms. Tidwell,
within that, I did not hear any recommendations with regards to merit increases.
We have factored in no structure adjustments, but what we're looking at is a 3% full PFP. But we would like to have that in greater discussions with you all when we get to next Monday. But we believe that we would have enough monies to go ahead and fund a 3% full PFP fund with no structure adjustments.
Okay.
Ms. Tidwell.
When do we get our budget books?
You should have them either tomorrow or no later than Thursday.
Okay.
So we'll talk about the detailed revenue projections on Monday, but one of the things that I wanted to just talk to you about today, so you had some time to think about it, is what collection rate we actually use. So even once we estimate the actual levy and the actual amount of revenue that will be generated off the certified roll, then there's always been a question of what of that amount do we project we're going to collect. So for a number of years, 15 through 18, for example, 08 through 15, we've used 100%. And there's been a few years we didn't make the 100%, but it didn't really matter because we had excess revenue in other categories. And that 100% doesn't have to be the current levy. It could include penalty, interest, and even prior years. The world is uncertain. My crystal ball's never been very clear, but it's even less clear this year. So for FY19, what we actually wound up collecting budget to certified roll was 99.88%. Okay, and then for FY20, what we're expecting to collect is 99.7%. So we have a little bit of a shaving off of that 100% for our actual last year and for this year's actual collections. So to be conservative, but to not to be extreme, what I'm going to propose or anticipating proposing is estimating a collection rate of 99.5. And that has a $2.4 million impact on the tax rate calculation.
So the 0.5%, half a percent equals about 2.5?
Yes, sir. 2.4.
Okay.
Again, we've worked with all the departments and we feel good about the individual line items in the budget for the revenue. A few are up, many are down. Some are uncertain, or all are uncertain, because no one knows what the economy and the world will look like for the remainder of starting in October through the remainder of FY21. So I just wanted to mention that today so we can talk about that along with any other ideas that the court has related to revenue. We want to be conservative, but we don't want to be draconian. We don't want to ever have to have a revenue shortfall. I've been here a number of years, and it's always a dice roll, but many years have been fairly consistent, and we felt good about our numbers. This year, all bets are off, obviously, because no one can really say what's going to happen to our economy next year. So I'd entertain any thoughts or questions or ideas that you have today. If not, we'll talk about more on Monday.
One of the things I would ask is let's look at all of our reserves and see if, where we feel like they are, if we're over. Let's look at the dollars where they're over and look at, pulling those back into GR.
Okay.
From that perspective, I guess another thing, what is our cash carry forward?
We're not there yet on that. That will be impacted also depending on what the court ultimately decides to do as far as reclassing expenses out of the general fund that are in that T8000 that would go to FEMA, BJA grant, or CARES funds. Examples of those kinds of things, of course, there's the hazard pay, jail overtime, PDTO, public health and public safety employees. We anticipate guidance coming soon, hopefully this week, from the OIG that will help us really address some more of these. But we're still looking at how much we ultimately have to charge the general fund versus what we can charge to one of those other funding sources.
And I guess with regards to that T8000, I'd like to whatever extent, I'd like to see the detail of that and maybe get guidehouses counseling on how much of that they feel certain will be. You know, maybe they classify it into for sure COVID, or COVID or some other reimbursement. It could be FEMA, it could be COVID, and then how much that we might be on, the bubble for having to pull out of cash carry forward, as you just indicated from that standpoint. So that would be critical. I know that we've had a discussion, and I know that Jack, as I've talked with Jack a little bit about it and with Helen, as far as FEMA reimbursement and the fact that they like to have one purchase order and everything accumulated behind that, instead of having 6-month purchase orders, maybe bring our purchase orders back to a 2-week or a 1-month purchase order, so that we could be putting in for reimbursement from FEMA much quicker and not have to, maybe that will help us better understand exactly what FEMA is eventually going to approve. And so if we can do that, maybe in the beginning it's a 2-week purchase order for those items that we think FEMA will reimburse us for, and then it may lengthen out, because after we've gotten the yes or no on a couple of items, then we might be able to lengthen it out a little bit and know that we can be pretty certain of getting that reimbursement.
And of course, the other unknown is when the government finally does the next round of funding or the next bill, and whether or not they address an extension date or any changes to the actual use of the CARES monies that we have.
Right.
So
I know they're now talking about at least it being 3 months after our next fiscal year end, which would be December of 2021. And then the other thing that they're talking, but they're also talking about potentially a little bit of money for local and state governments, I hope, from that perspective. So reserves, carry forward, the collection rate. Again, if we've got the carry forward, I'm going to make the, and you tell me whether that's right or wrong, I'm going to make the assumption that that carry forward is going to be a result of a lot of the things that didn't go on over at the court, and therefore expenditures that we may not have had over there. And while those, we hope, are going to start back and get a little bit more routine in the next year, it's not likely that we're going to catch up. It's just likely that that carry forward will truly be an increase in carry forward, and may allow us a little bit of flexibility from that standpoint.
I think part of our concern is for in future years, we're not certain that the carry forward will continue to maintain the robust ability to fund unknowns. Obviously, some of it's always where we miss something or overlook something, but a lot of it is those expenditures that we've budgeted that we didn't incur, and then a lot of times there's unexpected items that we just can't project, and they come in a lot higher as far as the revenue. We're just trying to be cautious on all fronts so that we're not counting on any one number to go a particular way. But yes, we'll certainly. But for the
most part, our cash carry forward has stayed over the last 10 years probably within $5-6 million either way.
That would be correct. I guess I'm just being cautious because I don't really know what next year is going to look like.
I understand.
So, but we can certainly address that. Yes, sir. I understand what you're saying. The reserves, the carry forwards, and then your discussion of the FEMA related to the general fund.
Judge.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to understand the rationale for lowering the anticipated collection rate. Is that something that we have done in previous economic downturns? Did we do that in 08 and 09?
No, we did not. And actually, it's been 100% because we always felt that in 08 and 09 there were issues, but they were more specific issues related to what was going on in the economy with the housing crisis. I've listened to a lot of webinars in education, and there's a lot of discussion of future vacancies in retail and commercial properties and other things. We're seeing a real increase in the savings rate. People are postponing buying certain cars, for example. We're down in those areas. We're concerned that while the refinancing in real estate has still been strong, we're not certain what that's going to look like. We have a larger increase again this year in the amounts due to frozen for the over 65. It's continuing. It's a trend. So while in the past we always felt that the 100% would be met, not by the current year, but by a combination of all of those penalty interest in prior years, plus any revenues that we underestimated, because historically we have been consistent and have had a lot of increases in what we collected versus what we budgeted. We're just worried that this year that we may not have that going into the following year. This time next year, obviously, we don't know what the future is going to hold, but we'll have a lot better understanding of where we are in regards to where we're going to be in the pandemic and whether or not people are going to return to work, when they're going to return to work, which businesses are going to open. You read now still that there are individuals who in July, maybe up to 30% of the populace is behind in their mortgage. I don't know what all that means in the long term, and so I'm just trying to be reasonable but cautious. So I'm open for discussion. I just wanted to put it out there today, and we can obviously discuss it more as you see fit. The other choice is we can budget some contingent revenue and contingent expense in case we do have more revenue. And then, again, the worst case scenario that the auditor certainly never wants to participate in is that I've been overzealous in my numbers and have to come back and declare any sort of shortfall.
Yeah, we're kind of with you on that one.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we all agree on.
And I would say the 0.5%, especially given the fact that it's only 2.4 million, that's not, in my mind, a huge number. And I'm concerned about commercial office retail space in the future, given everybody's beginning to kind of like working from home.
One chief investor person that spoke last week on a class I was listening to said that in 2008, the corporate world recovered from the recession related to stagnant wages for a number of years. He works for UNB. Their estimate now is that corporations worldwide will reduce their global footprint in commercial and retail space for 25 to 30%. And so that is something that would certainly impact counties. And so we're just trying to be conservative this year so that we come out where we need to be, and then we can always look at what that means for next year.
We better be attracting a lot of new business here because we may have a lot of office space for them.
Right.
Thank you, Ms. Tidwell. Any other questions of either Mr. Manius, Ms. Tidwell, or our budget, Helen, our budget person? Ms. Geis.
Your Honor, that's all we have this morning.
Okay, do we have a closed?
Yes, we do.
Then we'll recess our open meeting to proceed to close, discuss items exempted under Section 551, 1071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code.
If they're turning the system on now. Okay, and you have Commissioner Brooks on.
Having returned from closed session, there being no business to conduct at this time, we stand adjourned.